This is the Café con Podcast.
And so before we even get into the intro for our guest, Faith Knapp, I just want to shout out a couple of things. First and foremost, we want to start introducing some sort of coffee review. And this is a little cafecito that I've been drinking recently. Tell me if you can read it. Can you see it? Yeah. Reverent Coffee Company based out of Oakhurst, California. I've been drinking them for a while. Colombia. This is the Colombia roast from the Acevedo region. I don't know where the Acevedo region is in Colombia. Do you know where that is, Dan?
I'm not sure either, to be honest.
The fellow Colombiano. But just so y'all, this is something that, I mean, I drank it this morning and I was ready to go. This was awesome. I do it in a French press. I have like a Mr. Bean or I don't even remember, sort of coffee grinder for the beans, and it was awesome. Just so you got this tasting notes: strawberry, praline, and cream. It's a light roast. Typically, light roasts hurt my stomach. This one did not. That's just something that I realized with them. Everything that I get is super fresh from them. I mean, I drink my coffee black. I don't put anything in it, and it just tastes immaculate. I can't say enough about them. They're based out of Oakhurst, California. Peep them. Reverent Coffee Company. I love you guys.
What'd you think about the coffee, though?
Bro, I'm telling you, it sent me to space. It's that coffee. You know, there's something when you drink, for instance, the way that I like it is like you go to a diner and you drink that burnt sort of airplane coffee. You know it's gonna send you, but you know it's not gonna taste. It's like burnt popcorn taste, and you don't really feel good. You feel kind of grimy. This one, I drink one cup. I mean, granted, it's a fat cup of coffee, and I'm good for the day.
You don't add anything to it? You don't add anything?
Nah, I put creatine and I put collagen in it. Because you told me,
John.
Shout out John, shout out Thorn. That's the one you told me that to put creatine in the coffee. So I started doing that, and I was like, not too bad. So that's
difference?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, in my energy, my muscle energy, I feel kind of like a difference in that. But the coffee itself, bro, it's one of those things that I'm not like a coffee snob. I just like good coffee. You know, I would love to be a coffee snob. I just don't know enough about coffee to be a coffee snob. But do you
want to give a 1 to 10 rating for this one?
Oh, that's a good question. All right, 1 to 10 rating. I'd say I'd give this one like around a 7.8. 7.8, you know, right around there. And the only reason why is because I think that in order for it to be like a 10 out of 10, it's got to have the most beautiful, for me, preference and taste. It has to be the most beautiful taste. And I think one thing with coffee too, it's the setting in which you drink coffee. There's nothing like drinking coffee out in the middle of the mountains, you know, and you have nothing and that coffee just takes you. This coffee, I mean, I drink it at home and it gets me going in my day. I know for a fact, I always try to schedule the hardest thing I have to do right after I drink my cup of coffee, or what I want to be most productive in, because usually it's going to help me the most. But I give this one a 7.8 because the taste, it was not bitter whatsoever. Right. That's something that, like, I don't really like bitter coffee too much. This one is not bitter. You can actually, when you smell the beans from them, that's the other thing. Their beans smell distinct. So this one in particular has all those notes like I was talking about. It's strawberry. It's almost like a very fruity smell. You know what I mean? Praline and cream, I'd say it's a good one too. Right? They have some other ones. I believe I have a Mexico blend that I'm going to start diving into next. But for right now, I'm going to be on that Colombia. You know, that legal Colombian Bam Bam is what I'm going to be on. And one more thing before we get into the intro. I like that, though. 1 out of 10. I give it a 7.8. Good old Dave Portnoy. Shout out there for what he does. His pizza reviews. Yeah, I want to shout out T-Post. They're a company that reached out to us to send us a T-shirt. And this is that T-shirt. And what makes them special, first off, you don't know the T-shirt they're sending you. It's a subscription-based company. And then they also, on the inside of their shirts, have this. It's a little story, right? So it's a story all about why they made the shirt that they made that they sent to you. So this one in particular is all about local pizza shops and the value of local pizza shops. So there's like a really personal story in there just about how pizza kind of gave this one guy who started college in France, and he didn't know how to speak the language. he would always go to this one pizza shop, and the owners didn't speak his language, but they would always invite him to the back. I believe they were Moroccan owners, and they would just share. They would break bread over pizza every week, and it kind of gave him that sense of home. So it's a really great company. They're based out of Norway, I believe. T-Post. I would definitely go and check them out. Not sponsored ad either. They're just a really solid company. We just want to try and promote some really solid companies. So if you guys have if anybody has any, companies that they think would be interested in, please don't hesitate to reach out as well. So those are a couple of shameless plugs that I have, just because I think those are both really valuable products in themselves. Now, let's talk about Faith Knapp, the host of Not Like the Movies podcast. She has a great podcast. Go check that out, first and foremost. She is an actor friend that I actually met. We went to the same school. We went to UCF. So she's a little bit younger than I am. Not going to age myself, although I think I'm aging pretty nice. But we met in college. Sky met her in college, and then I met her. Sky and I go back every single year to do a talk with the students, just to kind of get them ready for what life is like in LA and things like that.
For those who don't know, that's Isaac's wife, also
yes,
an actor.
Has not been on the podcast yet. We need to get her on the podcast. And she's always like, "Oh, when am I going to come on the podcast?" I go, "I don't know, Sky. We live together."
A movie.
When you're not filming a movie, stop being such a great actor, and then you can come on the podcast for free. So, she knew Faith, and we met Faith actually at the first time we went back to UCF to talk to the students about what life is like a working actor, and just kind of give them insights, and just kind of give back, because I think that's important. And Faith was one of the few students that kept in touch with us, and then she eventually moved to LA, and her and Sky would be in contact a lot, and then through that I was able to kind of connect with her and meet with her, and she was so gracious as to come on to our podcast. Sky and I have been on her podcast as well, which is fantastic. It's kind of similar threads. However, hers is more geared towards, life in the movie industry, things like that. But she was really open. I know that she talked a lot about her upbringing, right? Her dad's job. She talked a lot about that. She really opened up on who she was and how, she came about, how she ended up in Florida and went to UCF, and then, how she deals with ups and downs and all those things. I remember her talking a lot about that as well, and what the podcast has taught her and stuff like that. So she
Definitely helped us out a lot with our podcast.
Oh,
the little details.
We can't.
Faith.
Yeah, we can't do this without thanking her. Faith helped us a lot when we were starting in terms of what softwares to use, what to even talk about, or which ways to go, the technical details. And she was an open book, the same way that you'll hear here. I mean, she's just a light spirit, man. She's just a really good person. She's a good person. She's true. She's honest, and she's just going to give you who she is. And aside from being an incredibly talented actor, she's also just a really good human. I don't know what else to say other than that. I mean, we're recording this, by the way, way after we recorded her podcast. So
yeah, it's been a little while. So
it's been a little while.
It was very light, refreshing. She's cool people, very down to earth, and she's just trying to find her way as well in the industry. And I can tell it helps a lot. She has her own podcast to let people know, like, hey, this is a safe space to speak about the ups and downs of this industry, because if any industry has that, it's definitely entertainment industry. That we've
straight
seen
up
many episodes. So yeah,
straight up, we've been fortunate to talk to a lot of people about that. So
yeah,
everybody, once again, we love you. We thank you. Sit back, grab your cafecitos. Hopefully it's a little cafecito from the Reverend Coffee Company, and hopefully you're wearing a t-shirt from the T-Post company. And if you ever forget, remember,
is the Café con Podcast.
I cut off that very expensive.
We'll have episode 2 with the infamous voice.
Yeah. Oh, we'll definitely have an episode with them. But yeah, guys, much love. Te quiero. Nos vemos.
So what you think? So what you do? They don't really care about you. So have a drink and think it through. But baby, it's not like the
Because at the end of it, what do you have? So if you don't rewire your mentality, you're going to die with no one beside you.
I want it to be you. And I don't want to keep living life without you.
Then you shouldn't have broken my heart because now it's too late.
I like that shoe collection.
Thanks.
Wow.
Whoa, that's loud.
Um,
Holy shit.
I got you. I got the levels. That is the second straight person that we've had on that has said something about your shoes.
2 for
bro.
2. 2 for 2.
Yeah,
This is the only second time I've shown it.
I
Should I
think
close
you
my
gotta keep
kind of a
blinds?
big focal point.
Is it getting like a weird lighting? Yeah.
No, I like your light. It's better than you looking like a serial killer, which you looked like a couple of times.
You've come a long way.
He was
You've come a
backlit
long
the
way.
first couple of times, and you could not see his face. Well, here, cheers. Do you have your cafecito already, George?
I was gonna brew it right now, actually.
Oh my God! Cheers.
Give me 30 seconds. Give me 30 seconds.
All right, that's fine. So your friend's getting married in
was, like-
Kansas. What's
Yeah.
like? You've known her since you were little. Who's your best friend?
Yeah, so like I moved around a lot. My dad was a radio talk show host, so like if he changed stations, he had to go to like the city.
Right.
So yeah, I lived in Kansas 7th grade to senior year of high school, and she's been with the same guy since our junior year of high school, and they're
Oh
getting
my
married.
God.
Yeah.
As you can see, this is literally how it's gonna go. This is super free flowy. Do not.
I love
think
it.
that-
That's
this
what I
is-
love.
That's exactly how we're just gonna have a conversation because we don't know what we're doing. God,
Perfect.
hold on. Let me connect this really quick.
Go for it.
What's happening with this? Okay, cool. Oh my God. Are you gonna go to the movies tonight?
Yeah.
I don't think I'm gonna go.
You're not a Little Mermaid fan?
No, I am a Little Mermaid fan. The thing is,
You just hate us? That's fine.
No, just check. You see what this says?
Oh, yeah, your Miami Heat. Do they play
Yeah, there's a big game. There's a big game tonight,
tonight? Oh,
and it's not looking good for the Heat. But you gotta roll with them as much
Show
as you
support.
possibly can. I'm a big sports guy. Big sports guy.
I am not.
You're not a
tried
big
to be.
You try to be a big sports person?
No, I tried to be when I was like younger. I think
Oh.
especially because like my dad was really into it, so I was like, "Oh yeah, I'll be into it." And then I was like, "I don't like this."
And your dad is from Chicago? Where's your dad from?
He's from Florida, but both
Oh.
my parents are from Florida.
Oh, why did I think Chicago? So you spent a majority of your time in Kansas, right?
Yeah, I went like a lot of places, but I was born in Florida because my parents met at UF. So I was born in Florida, and then I moved to Texas for a while, where I did like my first show as a kid. And then I moved back to Florida, and then we moved to Kansas. And yeah, so Kansas was like more formative years, I guess, like 7th grade through senior year of high school.
Oh
It's
yeah,
kinda where
dude.
you
That's come on.
decide who you are.
Middle school. Isn't it? It's. I mean, I think this is kind of interesting. I was talking. Who was I talking to? I don't remember. I talk a lot, but it was one of those things that I was just. I think it's probably Sky. How when you're on set, a lot of it sometimes feels like a cafeteria. You know, like a lunchroom.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's kind of like the gearheads stay with the gearheads. The actors are kind of with the actors. You know what I mean? And you're kind of trying to navigate. Do you remember that feeling you would get when you would walk into a cafeteria, and in high school, and you would have your food, and you'd see everybody kind of sitting down, and you just kind of think, what? Where am I? And if you didn't have a fixed place to
Exactly.
go, it was that.
Like I'm picking my people, so I'm like telling you who I am right now.
Yes, it's like you're in the Serengeti. You're looking at.
Yeah.
I love that scene in Mean Girls. Please tell me you've seen Mean
Yeah.
Girls. Okay,
Duh.
okay. Where she's looking at the cafeteria and she was talking about it like the watering hole. I'm like, that is the
Yeah.
perfect analogy for how a
No, that's
cafeteria is in
exactly
high school.
what it is. Especially like, being a new kid a lot, that's how it felt a lot of the time. And I was like, well, guess I'm like deciding who I am based on who I'm sitting with.
So when would you say your most transformative years were then? Because I mean, if you moved around, that's like a very different experience than somebody who grew up. For instance, I've known George since I was 4. So we grew up in
I don't have friends
Miami.
like that.
Yeah. I've known him since I was 4 years old. So I mean, it's
That's crazy.
different. It's just a different way of living. So if you could look back, Sky actually had this question. We had people over for dinner the other day, and she had this question on the back of these cards, which was, "What was the most transformative year of your life?" And it could be a few,
Interesting.
but what would you say is the most transformative year of your life, including your childhood, whatever, up to now?
I feel like my early childhood, I guess, was, like you said, just more of like moving around, so nothing really was like transforming. But I think once I was in Kansas and kind of found, I had always done theater since I was 6, but I didn't really start thinking about it as a true career, I think, until probably the freshman or sophomore year of high school, when I had like a really good director who was just, we were all talking about what we wanted to be when we grew up, and I said something along the lines of, I want to be an actor, but I'm going to get a degree in something safe, like design or something. And he was like, why? Because you're scared? And it was like in front of the whole class. And I was like,
Ooh.
yeah.
Oh, man. My man's calling out the set. Okay.
Yeah.
And then what'd you
he
say?
really was. And I was like, yeah. And then he was like my mentor all the way through high school. And I also had, like, my high school was we were arts focused, but we weren't like a magnet school. We were still a public school.
Okay.
But arts were like, we were good at it, essentially. Yeah. So I think, finding that and finding more so like my voice and my people in that was more transformative, instead of, I bopped around a lot in different groups throughout my childhood. Of like, I had sports friends, and I had, the geekier friends.
Is that
and the jockier friends.
Internet connection? Oh, no.
I'm kind of late on this. So, Faith, where'd you go to school?
All the places. No, I moved around a lot when I was a kid.
But you are you from Florida?
With Isaac and Sky. Yeah.
Are you from Florida though? Like, did you go to school in Florida in high school?
Technically, yes and no. I was born in Florida, but I went to high school in Kansas, which is where my best friend's getting married, which is what we were talking about.
Okay. How's Kansas? I'm interested in. I always wanted to visit Kansas, just because.
I mean, I lived in. Yeah, I mean. That's all anyone ever knows.
Oh,
yes.
George Michael.
And their college basketball
team.
team.
Go ahead. And they have great barbecue. That's something else that I know.
Yeah, they do. They do have good barbecue.
I like barbecue. There we go.
Yeah. I mean, Kansas City is a pretty big city, so I lived in a suburb of Kansas City, so it was only like 30 minutes to get there, and the Royals and the Chiefs and everything are there. So it's just like very similar to a Florida suburb. There's just no beach and no Disneyland.
Sorry for being late, guys. Cheers, by the way.
Cheers. Cheers, Bobby. Cheers number 2. Perfect.
Cheers number 2.
This is a legit Café Con podcast, because I haven't had my coffee yet today. This is my first. So it's going to be a very latent start. And then about 20 minutes in, we're going to be...
You're going to be ready.
Like, just going crazy. So just a little background, George. I know Faith through...
Tell me.
Essentially through Sky. But I think it's more so... it's going to be Sky episode part 3. But
so she's cool. If you met her through Sky, that means she's cool. By default.
I told her, I texted her after your episode. I was like, if you want a boost in self-confidence, like, just listen.
I don't know. She just always comes up. She is the light of my life. So, I think I met you, Faith, was when we did that talk back at UCF, right? Is that when I met you?
Yeah.
What's that?
Yeah. And you had so Sky and I go every single year. We do Drinking Around the World with our family. And it's in October, and we try to go back to UCF to talk to the film class, essentially.
Oh, you told me about this. I didn't know it was called Talk Back, though.
It's the on-camera auditioning class, and we try to go back and just... We can get into that, too. But we try to go and just kind of... it's kind of something that you and I were touching on the other day, George, about how we think it's really valuable for people to give their experiences as to how they are where they are right now. You know, how did you get here? So we try to go back and try to explain to the kids, not the kids. I keep saying kids.
But the kids. I was a child.
Yeah. You know, and we tried to just give back in terms of this is how much money you would need when you would go to LA. This is how much money we had. This is how much things cost now. This is how the lay of the land works. It just giving practical advice. This is how I got this job. This was the process in getting this job. So that's when we met Faith, and I think it was the first year that we did that. I believe it was. I believe it was.
I want to say it was
first year that we did the talk back. You have feedback, George. There you go. It's a little bit better. But it was the first year, and I remember you and McKinley specifically
oh my god
were the two people that reached out. Hey man, good for him, bro. That he's balling on a cruise ship now. So
good for him.
Good for him.
He is
God
such
bless.
a character.
Theater UCF has a lot of characters. Oh my lord. That's actually a question that I wanted to ask you was when you were at UCF, what do you wish? And we could all go down the line. George Michael went to Full Sail, by the way. He went to Full Sail and he graduated from Full Sail.
Full Sail.
Funny neighbor.
He's a music producer. He did it for music producing or production, right? What did you? I never remember what you.
I was gonna study music production, but I instead did recording arts. So just sound in general, not just music.
What do you wish somebody would have, or you would have known then, that would have helped you now? You understand what I'm saying? What do you think?
Yeah.
What is something that you wish you would have learned, or an opportunity? What are some things that you wish you would have learned back then?
Like career-wise or like
Sure.
life-wise?
It could be craft-wise, career-wise, life-wise, emotionally-wise, like whatever. Honestly, whatever.
Oh my god, so many things. I feel like I was so little. Because my class also was kind of weird. Like, it was only me and Kyla that were true 18-year-olds. Everybody else in our class was at least 23 starting.
There were transfers?
Yeah. So everybody was a lot older, except for me and one other person. So it was like a weird, I was kind of halfway in the 18-year-olds world and halfway in like the older kids world.
Yeah.
Which was interesting. And I think I let that sway a lot of my decisions because people were older. So like if they told me what to do, I would probably just do it because I trusted, like the age gap.
Yeah, of course.
So I think in a general sense, at least to me, college was posed as like, these are going to be the greatest years of your life. And like, it's going to be the best thing ever. And especially my freshman year, that was not what it was because I came to school with no one because I was from Kansas. So I knew no one. I was like in this new place. It's like kind of weird the first year because you're making friends, but also trying to figure out how to be by yourself. So I think like maybe just taking the pressure off of like, this could be a very average 4 years. And
yeah.
that's okay.
It's a good point.
Like, it doesn't have to be the best time of your life. I think that I felt like I was failing a lot because I wasn't having a great time the whole time. And I was also taking like 24 hours a semester and like slowly dying.
Wait, what? Why were you taking so many credit hours?
That's such a good question.
Did you double major?
Better?
No, I'm a super type A person and I get a lot of validation from being good at things and being very academic. So I think that was a piece of it. And then also because of how our class was set up, I could take multiple things at the same time because they were stacking them for the transfer kids.
Yeah.
So they could get out sooner. And then I realized I could graduate in 3 years. And so I was like, okay, great. So I'm going to stack it and leave in 3 years, which ended up working out because then COVID and all that stuff. But yeah, I think I would have maybe focused on kind of more of what you said when we were talking about like life outside of the PAC and like outside of the conservatory and invested maybe in more relationships outside of that because I don't talk to anyone from my class or from my like who I was friends with in the arts except for like you and Sky and Pika. And you guys weren't even in my class. Like I don't talk to any of those people anymore.
That is one of the crazy. Pika's great. Pika. That's one of the that's craziest things in graduating is how you formulate friendships with people from school that you would never have thought that you would have, right? Not because you don't like that person or whatever, but just by happenstance of life and the circumstances that come. That's something that really baffles me. You're right, though. I think that's an important message, is that, college may not be the greatest 4 years of your life.
Yeah.
Just this might not be. I think one of the benefits of college is for those of us that are blessed to have this, is the lack of responsibility.
That was great.
We thought we had to do a lot of stuff, but in reality, living life now, did not have to do that much stuff back in college. Do you know what I'm saying?
At all.
Just had to get to rehearsal by 10 a.m. That was it.
That's what I mean. You just got to show up. You just got to show up to places. You got to do your laundry, clean your apartment, make sure you're fed, work your job. And there's not really that much life stuff that is vital for those types of things. Oh man, 3 years.
Faith, what led you to go to UCF, being from Kansas? Like, what were the factors? And what other schools were you looking at?
I had Florida prepaid still because I was born in Florida. And at the time that I was born in Florida, they were still doing that thing of like, if your parents put in money now, then you could go to school to any Florida State school with like that same price without inflation and everything. So my parents, shout out to them, were very, very smart and did that. So I didn't pay for any of my college, which was amazing. And that's what my grandfather did for my dad. And my dad, like, afterwards was like, how can I repay you? And he was like, do it for your kids. So it's kind of like a generational thing.
Makes sense.
Was
were you looking at any other schools in Florida?
I've done it.
Or just UCF?
Yeah, I auditioned for all of the Florida State schools. And then I auditioned for like a couple out of state just to like see. But I kind of knew that I was going to go to Florida because I didn't have any money. And it makes no sense for me to go into debt at this other state when I could have just gone to Florida. And UCF was ranked pretty well and all that stuff. And it's, I just like, I got into a couple other BFA programs and I just didn't, like, I watched some of the shows at different places and kind of sat in and audited certain classes, and UCF just, I don't know, was the one I decided to. I had a freak out freshman year and like thought I was going to fully transfer. I told David Reed I was leaving and he should give my part away. And he was like, I'm leaving too. And then we both stayed. So,
wait, why? Why did you freak out?
Just, that's like my personality. I just like was very, I just thought I had made the wrong decision and that I was ruining my life because I picked the wrong place and that I wasn't doing the right thing. And like maybe all of a sudden it would be better somewhere else. And then I realized I was just freaking out for no reason. It's fine.
And what
it's a lot to take in your first year.
Dude, and especially being.
I had a rough first year.
He was in Pennsylvania. You go ahead, talk about that, because I want to go back to what you just said. But go ahead and talk about your first year, bro.
Yeah, just to make a long story long. So I grew up playing soccer. Soccer was my first love, my life. My ambitions were to play professional soccer growing up.
I was his second love.
Opposite.
Yeah. The only So that's why we're here now. Our long distance relationship is meeting new horizons. Meeting new horizons.
Came in and ruined everything. Okay, George. Sorry.
She's just keeping tabs for me.
Go, George.
So yeah, I played soccer my whole life, and then the whole goal was to play professionally. That didn't happen. So I was like, all right, well, I'm still good enough to play in college. So I went to college. I went to a small school in Pennsylvania called Dickinson College. It's by like, you've heard of it? You've heard of Dickinson College?
Yeah.
How do you know Dickinson College?
I have a lot of friends, like when I was in high school, I had a lot of friends who were soccer players, and like we're talking about different like tiers and things. And
okay.
School came up sometimes. Okay,
yeah, because that area of the United States is pretty big on college soccer.
Yeah.
So I went there. I visited the school, loved it. Yeah, that's pretty much the long story long. It's kind of shorter, but what was I?
Said, bye,
first year, you said your first year was bad.
Oh, yeah, okay, there we go. Yeah, so when I visited the school, I went to a camp where the coach recruited me, and I visited the school, and he was basically like, "You're gonna come here and compete for a starting spot. I'm pretty sure you're gonna be starting anyways." I started the first couple games, and then I didn't play the rest of the season. My grandfather died on the weekend of my birthday. I had to go fly to Colombia in the middle of the season. It was a whirlwind, definitely. Not to get too deep into it, but I kind of had not the same sentiment of like I'm gonna leave, but definitely a sense of like this is not what I signed up for, right?
Yeah.
So I can kind of to reel it back in. I can kind of relate to you of kind of having the hardships of that first year that you think you expect one thing and it's a completely different thing, and
Yeah.
it's tough to be a first year, especially going to another state. That's probably why we can relate, because you're just in a whole different world and it can somewhat can be a culture shock.
Yeah. Like no one gets it. And they're like,
no. And being alone it's very hard to be alone. And I'm a very independent person. Like I don't get homesick. I don't get like anxiety from being alone, but being alone and just feeling like no one can understand you on a cultural level or just even on a mental level it's hard. It's definitely hard. It's definitely
Well,
hard.
also I had someone like explain to me the other day that there's a difference between being alone and being lonely, which I think is very like meta. I'm fine being alone. I just don't want to be lonely.
The feeling of being lonely, there's nothing like it.
It's being in a crowd, and it's whatever. Robin Williams, he has some quote that's talking about the worst feeling in the world is being around a bunch of people and feeling like you're all alone. I think that's kind of the definition of loneliness, right? Is that it's hard to escape that feeling of not even being alone. It's just filling up a void almost.
Yeah, and you're not physically alone, but you just feel like no one gets you. Like no one understands what you're going through, and that's the hardest part, I think, is as much like you don't bother explaining it to people because you don't think they're gonna get it, or if you do, they don't get it, and you're just like, it's rough. It definitely is rough. Yeah, it's rough. Sick. It's definitely rough.
And that's why support is so vital. I sincerely, we talked about it on your podcast, which let me take a quick timeout break to throw some roses at Faith. She's kind of the reason why this podcast started, period.
I know. We want to thank you, Faith. I've heard some great things.
Wait. I have something even better. Hold on. Wait. Everybody wait.
Ladies and gentlemen, the sub-creator of Café con Pod. We're sorry it took this long to put you on the episode. We're here now.
Thank you.
Yeah. If it wasn't for you, we'd be nothing. We'd be nothing.
That's the first time. Here's another one.
There we go. That's a good one. Take a bow.
Thank you.
There you go. Encore.
That was the first time I've ever used that in an episode. That's funny. That's so weird.
Yeah.
New skills.
But the reason why we started this was in large part because I saw you doing what you're doing, and I had always thought of the idea of starting a podcast or whatever, and you just hit the ground running. It just seemed like you were just hitting the ground running. I'm sure there's a lot of, we talked about it on yours, premeditation on everything, but I wanted to throw roses your way because you're doing awesome. I told you that the other day when I saw you.
Thanks.
You're doing awesome. And coming from where we came from, I can empathize and sympathize, coming from UCF at least. Knowing the transition from that to out here, you're doing great. Period. So that to go back to the whole thing of what we're
on this podcast. Of course, you're doing great.
Yeah. Only great people come on Café con Podcast.
We don't bring on losers.
So
we got only winners. We bring people on that got shit going.
Peep, George, look that.
Oh man,
big game. We don't talk about it, but big game. Going back to this whole idea,
like the last day on Earth
of support, and another question that Sky asked that I think is a really cool question to ask the other day was, when is it that you felt the most free? So let's talk about like the opposite end of the spectrum, right? You have loneliness and then free. For both of you, I think that's a cool question. When is it that you guys have felt the most free?
I guess it also depends on like what you define free as.
What do you define free as?
I don't know. That's what I'm trying to think of.
For me, I can help a little. I think it's
let's hear yours.
The most unhinged, sort of no shackles on me. I'm laughing. I'm not in my head. I'm literally. It's almost being the most childlike as possible. So I think one of the times that I felt the most free was on my wedding day. that
Mm.
day. Seriously, just because it was one of the happiest just days of my life, and it's not even happy. I think happiness fluctuates. You get happy, you get sad, type of thing.
Yeah,
It was full.
totally.
I felt full. I felt loved. I did not worry about what I was saying, the way I looked. I had a bald spot on my beard that I had alopecia folliculitis. I didn't care that day, right? And it's filled in since then. But it's one of those things that I wasn't thinking about that. So to me, that's what free is. Just kind of free from the mental strains where you're not really necessarily thinking about yourself, but you're the most present. Maybe that's another way of saying it. The most
A state
present.
of flow.
Yeah.
I mean, I definitely had moments. I'm a big beach person, and my family, when I was younger, we would always, on Memorial Day weekend actually, go to this very specific hotel in Cocoa Beach, and my cousins and I would like just be outside all day, and you'd get like the little burn under your eyes from like swimming in the water and wiping your sunscreen off. And then at the end of the day, we'd watch there was always a Disney Channel movie that was premiering that weekend. So it was always like Camp Rock or something new, and like we'd all be cuddled up in the bed and that sort of thing. So like those moments when I was a kid and I wasn't really super focused on what was next, I think was really free and lovely. And then I also think as I got older and more like of an anxious person in my life, I was much more free on stage. Like I have like snippet versions in my head of moments on stage where I was like, it's almost like I could live forever flow type of thing of like, this is what I'm meant to do and this is what I'm doing. And like the aftermath of, I was in my favorite play ever my senior year of high school and my director, who basically like made it so that I'm doing this, he passed away like suddenly 2 years ago. But he, after the show, he had like seen me through all of high school, and I had like not made our rep like varsity theater class for a year, and then I made it, and like I'd gone through all this stuff, and he was like crying, and my little sister was crying because it was this emotional play that like connected people. And it just, I think just being able to see the reach that you have and like the freedom within that is where I feel really free, which I feel like is kind of a cop-out answer because it's not me being free, it's me being free in a character. But there's that.
I think that was
That's
a great
cool.
answer. What
That
was
a
the
great
play?
answer.
It's called I and You. It's by Lauren Gunderson. Highly
It's not the
recommend.
play where the
It's
two people
very,
start at the opposite ends. Is it a musical?
No, it's just a straight play,
Oh.
but there are just two people in it. It's very high school, I guess, in a sense, but then there's a deeper thing underneath. It has like a big plot twist at the end.
There's nothing like performing. I could tell you that much. And then I kind of want to touch on that a little bit. George, what about you? When's the times that you felt the most free?
I would say traveling. Traveling to places where you don't have an itinerary because there's so much to do in that city or town. Or the complete opposite of there's not anything to do, in a good way. For what I mean by that is the times I've traveled with you guys to Yosemite, where we wake up and I'm like, I mean, I already expected like we don't have anything seriously planned, but it's cool to wake up and we all have Sky's amazing acai bowls. We're like, what are we gonna do today? Oh, we're just gonna go on a trail and we're gonna hang out by a creek we can jump in. I think that's very freeing, just because you can go somewhere and it's not like there's no itinerary or day-to-day duties, and you can just be free with your friends. I think traveling. I've been traveling a lot since I was a child, so that's why it sounds kind of random.
Gotcha.
But I come from a family that travels a lot, so that's been a staple in my lifetime so far. And performing, like you guys said, when I would play soccer at a competitive level, obviously you're on a team and you have responsibilities on the field, but there's something about soccer where it's like you can't call timeout. You can't really, it's different from any other sport. It's just so free flowing. And I guess once you reach that flow state, there's nothing like it. And that you're on a team and you're all counting on each other. That camaraderie, there's nothing like that. I find true freedom in that, even though there's checks and balances and you kind of have to play your role. But if you have a strong team around you, like you feel free. You feel like no matter what happens, my they got my back. So
Yeah.
I would say those two things, and then making music, because there's no rules unless if there are certain rules to making music, right? Like time signature, things like that, key you're playing in. But if you move beyond that and you just let your creativity flow in a wild manner, it's very freeing, I would say. That no one's telling you what you need to do, and you need to listen to your own conscience, in a sense.
I have a question for you, George, actually, that I just thought about. When you're on stage, like when you are performing or you're DJing, how does the crowd affect you when they're both responding and not responding to you?
What do you mean? Like, how do I respond to that?
Yeah. How does it affect you? Do you feel when people aren't vibing to the music or whatever it is, if they're just eating, if they're not paying attention? This is my vibing to the music. If I'm feeling
that never
music,
happens.
Like,
that never happens. We always
They're
turn it
always
up.
That's
feeling
great. Everybody always pays attention.
No, okay, so there you have some DJs that they'll just play whatever they want. I don't do that. I'm very aware of
I don't
the people
do that.
I don't do that.
I don't do that.
Sorry, that's hot. But I'm very considerate of. It's a give and take, right? I read the crowd. Before I go DJ somewhere, I like to get there a little bit earlier just to see, not to make assumptions or stereotype, but you see the type of demographic that's there, how they're interacting with each other, how loud the conversations are, or how more chill the environment is. It's all those things you take in, and if I see people aren't vibing, I'll figure it out. I'll play music for them to vibe to. Like if there's a bar that I was DJing a lot, and it's a restaurant bar. So for the first 2 or 3 hours, people are having dinner. So I know not to make it about me.
Like,
yeah, I'm playing more speakeasy music, but it's not your everyday like elevator music. So you do see people head bobbing, and they're like looking up, like, wow, like I can't believe I'm hearing the edit of this song from my past. I don't know if that answers your question so much though, but
that did. Yeah, it's a give and take. So whether
it's a give and take, yeah, I'm very conscious of the. I understand that you're DJing, you're in command though, but it is a push and pull. Like you can't just be up there and being a tyrant, and just trying to feed your own ego. I'm blessed to be introduced to DJing in a very proper manner, which it sounds silly, but I started DJing in college. So you're not going to DJ just to DJ for yourself. You're DJing for the people at the party, right?
Right.
So maybe I might not play this song in my room when I'm cleaning my room or I'm, doing whatever, XYZ, but I know these group of people like these type of songs, so I'll play it. And there is a gratification of seeing people react to music a certain way, even if it's not your cup of tea. So yeah, I learned early on that it's a push and pull, and it's really like having a conversation with the crowd through the music.
oh, that's cool.
Because then you talk about it later, like, man, when you played this song, this is how I felt. Or people come up to you and you're like, man, I haven't heard this song in so long. So like what I was saying earlier, I was being sarcastic, but in a sense I wasn't, because I try to make myself foolproof to where I don't forget the goal. It's for people to have a good time. And if you don't forget that goal, you usually accomplish that goal. Whereas if you get away from it, then there's moments that can be, okay, people are not feeling this, and you can't lie through the music. You can tell if you're playing the music for yourself or for the crowd in the moment. So I haven't had really any bad experiences DJing, knock on wood. But I don't know if that really answers your question. Like if you can kind of, can you repeat your question again?
You answered it. My question was, how does the crowd affect you when you're up there performing?
Okay.
Which is what that was essentially
what
I was asking.
You got to be you got to respect that people actually came out, not to see you, but they just came out in general. right? They're spending their money on dinner, drinks. I'll tell you this one thing. My roommate that we had on one of the episodes, which I forgot to mention, Chris, he met his now wife at the first party I ever DJ'd in college.
Oh my God, that's so weird.
So that really struck a chord. That really cut deep. Once they started dating, like a month. Like they met each other at that party, and it was like love at first sight. They were just all over each other. You would have thought they would have been dating for a couple months now.
Wow.
Dude, this was like the second month my freshman year.
That's so cool.
So to see that and seeing what an impact that can make, obviously I'm not trying to do this to like have people go home and make babies or fall in love at the first night, but just me playing music.
It is what it
happens. It happens, but you get what I'm saying? That's not my goal of like, I need people to leave here inspired to be the better version of themselves. Yeah. No, I want people to have a good time, and whatever happens, happens. So when that happened and they started dating seriously from his freshman year all the way to our senior year, that to me was like amazing. Like I could stop DJing and I could say that I played some part in that. You know, maybe they would have met one way or another, and their personalities is what really got them close together. But to see them connect on that level, I took it as a badge of honor of just, you kind of have to be you have to be very conscious of the crowd. It's not like, obviously you're commanding the crowd, but it's a conversation at the end of the day. Whoever's leading the conversation obviously probably has more power, but it's at the end of the day, it's a conversation. So yeah, just be conscious of the things that are happening around you. And you know me, like you said, like you've told people, I'm the type of guy that's at the back of the party just observing, just taking it all in.
Yeah.
Not to be antisocial, but I'm so observant, and I'm not impulsive. I think of the bigger picture. I can take a step back and open up my blinders and really take everything in. So that's something
Do you think you're like have you heard people say like a super empath? Like you feel other people's feelings a lot stronger than you feel your feelings?
That's a tough question. I think I'm that times myself. I'm very good at taking so I guess, yeah, I'm good at
You said what?
Like, I'm very conscious of other people and having empathy, but I'm also very in tune with how I feel. Like, I don't.
Okay. So
actually, no. You might actually. Let me backtrack. You're right. I am that because I do consider other people's. I do consider other people a lot more than myself sometimes, to a detriment. So yeah, I would say, yeah. Just to cut the answer short. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's yeah.
I think a lot of artists are.
Very. The ones I've met, yeah. You'd think like they walk into a studio and they're very, it's me. It's more, no, it's like, how does everybody feel about what I just made? You know, not to be like liked or accepted. You can ask Isaac, I'm not someone that cares to be liked or accepted. Not to sound arrogant, but I'm the first person that's going to agree to disagree.
That's a good quality.
Yeah, I'm the first person to agree to disagree about anything, but I am pretty considerate of like how other people are thinking, and I'm pretty selfless to a detriment, to my own detriment sometimes. So
that's something that you learn as you grow, as you get older as well. I think is the whole idea of picking and choosing your battles, specifically with other people. And I've learned that the most through just experience, because I remember we were talking to this older couple one time. Of course, they want to give us marriage advice. And I mean, I love it. Yeah, I love it when people give us marriage advice. But they gave us marriage advice, and the wife said, pick and choose your battles. But what I mean by that is this worth me risking everything on? If it's not, let it go. It's not that big a deal. And when she said that, I go, wow, that's interesting. Now, that's very hard to decipher in everyday life and activity. I remember I was walking Abby one morning, and I had just woken up, and she likes to sniff people intensely, and this guy was walking by on his phone, and he was this big guy, and she sniffed his ankles, and he was like, hey, why don't you watch your dog? And I was like, what do you mean? I'm watching. And then I kind of got into it with him, but I should have just let that go. That was a moment in which I had just woken up, I was aggressive, And I should have let that go, but I didn't. So that's just to show that, you don't always make the right decision. But
if there's one friend I have that's good at that, it's you, Isaac. Like, I've seen him where there might be like a disagreement with somebody, and he's just like, he'll take the high road immediately, and he'll just pivot and he'll be like, well, okay, well, I guess we'll go do this or something.
Because what's the point?
Anyway.
Yeah.
What's the point,
I learned
man?
that a lot from you.
Let's all laugh.
I was very opposite growing up. I was very, very opposite, but now I've learned to kind of just.
Because my dad he loves to argue with people, and I love my dad.
Man, my dad too.
Yeah, he loves.
I think it's a dad thing.
Yeah, I think so too, man. It's just that thing. I'm like, whatever. Who cares?
Faith, what was that term you mentioned to me again?
Super empath.
A super empath?
Super empath.
Or like an overly sensitive empath. People use both.
Yeah, my sister thinks I'm a very sensitive person.
Wow, your sister is also.
She's a tiger.
She will tell you exactly the way it is and
She's
has
a Scorpio.
no issue telling you
Scorpio.
exactly the way it is. I love that lady.
She knows she's right. That lady's never wrong.
She is hilarious. Oh, God, I love her.
God bless her. God bless her.
Faith, I just immediately saw when you asked him that question, because we've had, I think you're our 10th recording now, maybe. I don't remember. But
Go you guys.
Let's go. 21. We're just going for over 21. Hey, there's your dad. Say hi to your dad.
There's my dad. Hey, guys.
Hey.
Hi.
There's my
Bye.
pops. I told him to take the dog out before she starts barking.
He heard you guys say that dads like to argue, and he was like...
Wait, what was that? What were we talking about? Are we going to argue about something I know?
I like to argue. You talking about me?
I don't like to argue.
Did I hear my name?
Michael. Yeah, you're talking about me? Bro, that's hilarious. I saw you flip that switch into asking questions, Faith. Like the podcaster just came out, which was awesome. Because that was something I wanted to ask you was, what have you learned? And we kind of talked about this a little bit when you were leaving the other night. What have you learned from podcasting and observed within yourself, within the way that people talk? Just what are some things that you have observed from starting your podcast? And how many episodes do you have now?
I think I have 10. I think 11 will be tomorrow because I always release on Tuesdays. And then I think I have like 8 or 10 recorded.
Okay.
And then like 2 scheduled. So I guess in total that's like 20.
Yeah, 20.
26?
Yeah.
20? I don't know. I'm not a math major.
You beat the statistic.
Yeah, right? Beat the statistic. It's only 7 that you have to publish to beat that statistic.
Yeah.
It's extremely humbling. Especially because I edit a lot, so I listen to myself a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So I've noticed a lot of my tics in how I talk and how I present things that have been interesting. I've also kind of noticed in some of my earlier interviews where I'm like passively listening, but you can tell I'm just waiting to ask the next question. And then when later ones, I've kind of figured out like actually listening to the person. And then if my question comes up, that's great. And if we go somewhere else, that's great. And I've also just kind of learned how interesting it is on how different people speak and how different people tell stories, which is very evident when you're editing. Like some people I can edit in like 2 hours. Some people it takes me like a full day because they're everywhere, which isn't good or bad. It's just very different. And then I've also noticed, I think we talked about this a little bit, how much more intentional I am in these kinds of conversations than I am in my life, which is kind of eye-opening. And I would like to be this intentional in my life and actually connect with people like I do when I'm in an interviewing space. But for some reason, for me, it takes the pressure off of, I feel like I'm providing them with something. So my people pleaser side of me isn't like, oh, I'm taking up too much of their time. I'm asking them these questions they don't really want to answer. The forum gives me like a weird way to be like, oh, well, I offered this and you agreed to do it. So you're getting something out of this. So I don't feel bad about taking up your time, which I wish I could just do in my life, but we're getting there.
Work in progress. So then what have you noticed that you've changed from when your first interview, from your first episode to now?
Well, I have to give credit to my dad because he he was a radio talk show host for a long time, like 25 years. He was syndicated and everything. And then when politics got really nasty, he was like, I'm done. Like, he was getting death threats and like it was just like a lot.
Good move. Good move.
So now he works for a church, so he did a 180. But
Good move.
Wow.
he also does podcasts, and he has his own podcast. And so he always listens to mine and gives me feedback. And I am a hardcore people pleaser, and I'm really trying not to be. But that's just who I am. I like when people like me, and I like to not cause conflict. And it comes out sometimes in my interviews. He's like, I can tell you're trying to make this person comfortable. You didn't think that was funny. You didn't think that was interesting. Obviously, you don't have to say that, but you don't have to be so overly engaged and make them feel like they're onto something, because then they're going to go off on this trail of something that you're going to have to cut later, versus you just being like, okay, moving on. We're going to something else, and being honest in that capacity. I have a really hard time with, but I think I'm focusing on more. And not as I'm very self-deprecating in my humor, because that's just easy.
Yeah.
And he was like, you need to stop saying like nobody listens to this. You need to stop saying that you don't know what you're doing. Like, you do know what you're doing, and people do listen, and you don't have to be boastful about it, but you also don't have to pretend like it's the weird super humble thing that you don't have to do. You can just be like, this is where it's at, and that's great, and I'm okay with that. And I say like every other fucking word.
Aha.
We
So
talked
I
about that.
really tried so hard.
Ah.
Now I like censor. There it is. And now I censor myself. It's so bad. When I'm editing, I literally am sitting on my computer and I'm like, what the fuck? Why did I just say like 3 times in a row? So that's a big thing for me right now.
It's one. I think it's a generational thing, because like I remember growing up, and like specifically with the Miami Lakes girls, they would always go like, oh my god,
It's like an
pero like.
Pero like, well, yeah,
Pero
the Hispanic, pero like, oh my god.
Well, my best friend in at UCF, Anna, she's from Puerto Rico, and she would do that all the time.
Oh yeah, pero like, I don't understand. Like, why are you going over there?
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't make any fucking sense. Pero like,
mama,
dude,
no.
chill. And I heard this guy talking. 2 things I wanted to say. For is another one. And likes. I'm trying to take out of my vocabulary.
And you find everybody's tics, especially when I edit. Everybody has a different phrase or a different level of their or and so. I just edited one the other day, and my friend says, a bunch. That's his and it's so weird to find it in other people.
It's something that we fall back on as a defense mechanism because we're trying to fill up space. So we talked about this a little bit when you were leaving. I was listening to this guy who teaches public speaking, and he said to fall in love with the pause. If you are able to use a pause more, even just talking in a sentence like this, you're able to kind of think of what you're going to say before it happens, so that you don't have to fill up those half seconds with like or or you knows. And something else
I
that I
just
thought
elongate the word for no reason. I'm like, and
I think that's just because it's this weird forum format where you're trying to say, hey, we're having a conversation, but also I know somebody's listening, but also I know that I don't want you to just sit there waiting for me to ask you a question, because then it's going to be awkward, and then you're going to think that I don't know what I'm doing. It's all these things start to happen, and it's fuck that bullshit. So, are you a reader? Do you like to read?
I do.
Have you ever read The 4 Agreements? It's a very small book. This guy named Don Miguel Ruiz wrote it. It's based off of Toltec wisdom, and the 4 agreements are: be impeccable with your word, always do your best, never make assumptions, and I forget what the 4th one is.
Can he do the 4?
I can't remember what the 4th one is. Don't make assumptions, always do your best, be impeccable with your word. Whatever. I'll remember the other one later. But the only reason why is because that first one, be impeccable with your word. In Spanish, pecar means to sin. Be impeccable, impecar means don't sin against yourself. So basically what that means is kind of going based off what your dad was saying. For instance, if you didn't want to have coffee today, you don't like coffee, don't drink coffee.
Right.
You know, so if you don't like peanut butter, don't say that you like peanut butter. Yeah, I love peanut butter. It's essentially just saying don't go against yourself, which is so hard as an artist as well. And as an artist that's reliant on somebody else to give you opportunity and jobs, to not try and go against yourself. And the weird counterintuitive thing is the second that you begin to take power in who you are and are okay with not giving away yourself to someone else is the second that you become more attractive, and not not physically attractive and things like that, but attractive in the sense of, oh man, this person, it's you just stand up for yourself. You know, it's a strange dichotomy in life where you want people to like you, but the more that you don't care if people like you, the more they like you. It's it's really weird. But that's a good book if it's a really good small read. And I think your dad is right on, man. That is great advice that he was saying. What church does he work at? I wanted to ask that too.
He works at the Church of 1122. It's in Jacksonville.
Right on. Go dad. What religion is it?
Yeah. It's non-denominational Christian.
Right. NDs. I like
Bible.
NDs. I like NDs. We went to a Baptist Christian school. That's where George Michael and I met when we were 4.
Oh, cool.
So
yeah, that's why I do my interviews on Zoom, as you know. And it's his Zoom account because I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but the church won't care. It's his like professional Zoom account that he has for the church. And I forgot to tell him the other day that I was doing an interview, and I came on to do the interview, and I ended up in a Zoom room of Church of 1122, like having a meeting, and I was like, and he was like, leave. I was like, I'm so sorry.
That's hilarious.
Is pretty funny. That's pretty funny. That is pretty funny. Are you spiritual or religious at all?
Yeah, I would say I'm like non-denominational Christian. I have my like I have my qualms with certain religious things, but I think my problem is more so with what people do to religion, not the actual message of the religion. Like I am 100% in on love each other, accept everyone, all of that stuff, like the grace to give people and to give to yourself. I think people have messed with it a lot, especially I just watched the Hillsong documentary, the docuseries. That'll really turn you off to what people do to religion.
Huh? Ooh, pretty wild.
It's crazy. And also just because I feel like I'm holding two very different worlds, because our entertainment industry and religion are always kind of put up against each other.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of a difficult thing for even when I present that to people, like all my coworkers. I work at a kids theater, so that we're all actors. And sometimes religion will come up and somebody will be like, oh, your dad works at a church, you're Christian, so you XYZ, like whatever their assumption is of certain Christians. And it always comes back to like either homosexuality or people, what you have to do to be in hell, like sex before marriage. Like it's all of those big things that it's always about. And then I have to be like, well, I believe in this part,
right?
but not this.
Right.
And that's also very hard to explain to people. But yeah.
No, I completely, again, empathize. I think that when people focus on those types of things, it's the headlines and they're not actually reading the fine print, because I'm Christian as well. And
But also, like, I don't believe all my friends who are homosexuals, like, are bad people or that anything's going to happen to them.
Yeah, absolutely not.
Like,
absolutely
that's something
not.
that I just totally disagree with.
Yeah. And so this is the thing as well, is that in the literature, if people actually walk the mile in someone's shoes before judging them, right? That type of thing. In the Bible, it talks about having doubts. It talks about going and presenting doubts to what you're coming up against. And I actually learned that a lot from my mom, where my mom is a very strong Christian, yet she has a lot of doubts. And we've had a lot of conversations like this constantly. And it's never a blanket one way or another type of thing. It's a growth pattern. But what I was going to say in terms of my observation and having the religion that I have on set is, when I say I'm a Christian, everybody kind of goes,
yeah, everybody's like, oh no.
But if I was to say,
no, that's not.
I'm not about to hand you a pamphlet to try and save your life. You know, it's not what I'm trying to do. But if I was to say, for instance, not that there's anything, I'm married to a Jew. I love the Jewish culture. I love the Jewish religion. If I was to say I was Jewish, people don't really bat an eye. It's a little different. right? And I think that that's just an interesting dichotomy just within the entertainment industry, just because it's strange. It is strange. I think that it's hard sometimes to talk about religion, which I don't think necessarily is ever. It can be a very good thing, and if people are willing to have a conversation, it could be a very bad thing. If people are not willing to have a conversation.
And I think people automatically align you saying you're a Christian with a certain political view.
Yeah, right.
Which is also not accurate for me. So it's very like, yes, I believe in this, but not in all of this horrible stuff that you see in what people have done.
Yeah, it's the human element. It's the X factor. That's why, first off, it's a personal walk. That's something else that you're not a general person. Nobody's a generic person. It's a personal walk. It's a personal relationship. In my life, I think we talked on your episode, Faith, a little bit, that prayer and meditation have greatly helped me out here in LA.
Yeah.
And I heard Lawrence Fishburne, the dude that plays Morpheus in The Matrix, talk about how prayer is when you talk to God, meditation is when you listen. Because you have to have a conversation, and in order to have a conversation, you have to listen. It's not just about talking. And in praying, I'm able to ask for certain things. For instance, for myself, it's always clarity. Please help me see the paths that are in front of me. Discernment, to see where each path leads, and then the strength and courage to walk down the proper path. And when I do that, and I meditate, then I'm able to stop, settle, and listen. Oh, maybe it wasn't a great thing that I woke up and didn't give my wife a hug and I started checking my phone right away in the morning. Right? It's little things like that that have helped me understand. Okay, because out here, I ain't gonna. There's a lot of, as you know, and we talked a little bit about this as well, smoke and mirrors, right?
Yeah,
and you gotta you gotta have a firm grasp on who you're trying to become in your life. And for instance, I'm 100% okay saying that I'm a Christian. I'm 100% okay talking about it. And if I wasn't, it would be difficult, right? Again, I'm not going on set and saying, "Hey, everybody!"
Right.
Jesus is the way.
Cross. Yeah, I brought this cross so you can see that I'm a Christian. That's not what I'm doing. I'm a much more lead by example, lead by action type of person, and then I'll have a conversation. However, what I will say is having those little things that make you believe in who you are and who you're becoming is vital. It's vital. Period. I know that was a little bit of a tangent, but thank you for sharing. You didn't have to talk about that stuff. We don't ever really want to make people talk about stuff that.
Oh no.
But you got a Faith point. You got a point, Faith. Sorry, I got
a Faith point.
Yeah, I got a little bit of dyslexic in me. If you guys don't realize it by now, but how you were saying that, how you were saying that, like, it could easily be a very easy place to have group thought in religion, but I think our generation really broke that mold of a monolithic thought process, right? Where you're still your own person. Everyone's on their own journey. So, we tend to grow up in Christian surroundings where everybody has to interpret the Bible the same way or think the same way or move the same way, and that's not the case. I think in those instances, that's where people start to feel the most alone. When you're around everybody that's supposed to think the same thing, but you feel alone, kind of what we were saying earlier, being around a crowd of people and trying to please everybody around you. Whereas if you worry about yourself first, then everybody else can flourish. So I think that's a beautiful thing our generation has grown from, of not having like herd thinking in certain sectors of our life.
I hope so.
Because Isaac and I disagree on plenty of things, but I think that's what makes our relationship even stronger, is that we can both not have the same type of thought process, but try to understand each other's respective thought processes. Yeah. And grow from them. Because if we're all just thinking the same thing and trying to do the same thing, like, how are we going to grow? How are we going to expand?
Yeah.
Well, that's the whole point, and it's funny because I spoke with a guy who is from California. He was born and raised in Santa Monica, and he went to UCF for his master's. He went to go get his master's at
interesting.
UCF. Yeah. So I met him early on when I first moved out here. I did one of those Decoded on MSNBC. You know, it was were no lines, but I played like a bank robber or whatever. And he was a great guy. I remember him. I occasionally still talk to him on IG. He was telling me how
On the IG?
on the
You're such a dad.
on the IG. Sometimes it's Instagram, but today it's the IG. Brought to you by coffee. So so I was talking to him, and he was telling me how in LA, because he was born and raised out here, he initially thought that LA was the most open-minded, open conversation place in the world. He said you can have a conversation about anything out here, and we're so open-minded. And then he wanted to go to a completely different place because he'd been born and raised here, so he wanted to go to a completely different place to have an experience getting his master's. So he went to UCF, and I think he got an MBA. I'm not quite sure. Anyways, he told me when he landed in Orlando and he spent a few months there, he realized how close-minded LA was. And I said, "What?" And he goes, "Yeah, LA is a bubble." Now, what I mean by that is that in their open-mindedness creates a bubble in itself, to where if you're not inside that bubble, you're excluded. So it is very close-minded. And I was like, wow, that I never thought about it that way. So in effect, I mean, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
No. That's it.
It's a lot of like smoke and mirrors of being open-minded. Like my best friend that lives here, we've been best friends since 7th grade. She's a dancer. And she happens to be Asian, and she says all the time, she is a server at Cara, it's in Los Feliz, and she gets more racist comments here in Los Angeles than she did when we were growing up in Kansas.
Dude, that's wild.
Yeah.
You see, that's wild.
She's like, they're pretending to be woke, they're pretending to be progressive, but then when I'm there, they say these comments that I'm like, you can't say that to me.
Yeah, it's wild to me. And for just a quick aside, Cara and Los Feliz, right? So coming from Miami, I come here to say cara, which means face, cara, and then Los Feliz was Los Feliz. And
that's
I would
what I
always
said
say,
when I first moved here. People were like, "What the fuck is Los Feliz?"
Yeah. I was like, "Oh, it's
The
Los
happy
Feliz."
ones.
They're like, "No, it's Los Feliz." And I go, "Technically speaking, you're wrong."
It's not.
But for sure, Los Feliz. But yeah, man, that's wild. What I was gonna say, let's flip this on its head. What was something that surprised you moving out to LA that was a positive thing that you didn't realize that you were gonna experience?
That's a great question, because a lot of people talk about you're moving to
The
LA.
negatives?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh.
Let's flip it on its head.
None.
Nothing. No, I'm kidding. There is a really lovely sense of, once you find it, community within artists, when you find the right artists. With my acting class, I've been in the same one almost for a year, and so I know everyone now, and I've been partners with almost everyone, and it is a very big atmosphere of, I'm making this, do you want to be in this? Somebody's producing this, somebody's writing this. Everybody's very supportive, and it is not at all like the college, high school environment of there is only X amount of roles and we're all competing for it. It's very, I'm going to lift you up because once you're up there, I can be up there too. And once you're there, I can be up there too. And we're all going to get there together. And I think that is really lovely, especially in a place where you drive down Sunset and you see all of the roles you didn't book. And then your friends in your acting class are like, yeah, I haven't booked anything in a year. And you feel a lot better about yourself. So that's lovely.
Where are you at? What acting class?
I take from the Last Acting Studio with Deshaun Terry.
Cool. No idea, but everybody, there you go. Last Acting Studio, Deshaun Terry.
He's in The Morning Show, if you watch that.
Who is he?
He is, I forget his character's name. He's one of the reporters.
Is he the one that goes to Asia when COVID starts?
Yeah.
Down?
And he
All
almost
right.
gets stuck there.
Yeah. He looks so tall. Is he super tall?
He's tall.
All right, he looks like he's like about 7 fucking feet. Deshaun, good
Yeah,
height,
he's
brother.
tall.
If you want to pass off a couple inches, dog, I'll take a couple inches. My
He's
guy,
great.
he seems like it. He seems like.
But
a
Faith,
nice
to
guy.
touch on what you were saying, I definitely get that a sample size vibration of when I go to LA and New York, and you're in those cities. You're like, I want to do stuff, right? Like you said, there's it's a hub of just creativity.
And everybody does, which can be great and also awful.
But it can definitely
your
be like
barista could be like, yeah, I can produce that for you. And you're
Yep.
like, sick.
Yep.
I definitely got that feeling going to Full Sail. When I got to Full Sail, I tell Isaac I got the Harry Potter effect when he's like on the train to Hogwarts, and you're like, wow, there's a place like this for me, and there's other people that do this too. Like, this is amazing, you know, because we come from we say we're from Miami, but we're from outside of Miami, so you don't see that every day of creativity flowing. The moment you walk out of your door, you just see palm trees and
humidity.
And you see humidity. You literally see it.
Literally see it.
Because everybody's sweating and they point over there and there's sweat that flies everywhere.
Yes.
I miss it, man. I miss the humidity. Personally,
I love it.
My skin misses the humidity.
Me too, because I'm cracking everywhere. I crack. I've been here for 7 years and I still am cracking. And I moisturize 2 times a day. Oh, all right? And I still crack everywhere.
That's what I love about going to LA, because my skin's the opposite. My skin doesn't need humidity. I need like dryness, because I get like oily. I get oily easily. Yeah, like look at my forehead; it's shining right now as we speak. So, like, I love every time. I look forward to going to see Isaac every time in LA. I'm like, yes, I can breathe out here. I don't think humidity is overwhelming, but like I said, my skin doesn't like it the most. So
it's been a minute, Doc. You got to come and visit, bro.
I know. I haven't seen your new
come
place.
Breathe in all the
Shame
smog.
on me.
Yeah, I know. I was gonna say, come and breathe in. You sure you can breathe out here? I don't know about
Well,
that.
every time I go out there, we don't stay in LA. We either go to Yosemite or go somewhere. We're never in the city.
That's true.
We're never in the city.
That is 100% true.
Sky, Sky, Faith, you might have answered this question already. But what got you into podcasting?
Oh.
My dad talked on the radio and did stuff like that. So for forever, before podcasts were cool, he was like, you should start a podcast. I was like, I don't have anything to say. That's dumb. So I didn't do it for a while, and then I got really into listening to podcasts. I listened to Armchair Expert all the time. I know so much about Dax and Monica. It's scary.
Monica Padman.
Yeah, I love her. If I ever saw her, I think I'd die. And I listen to people like One Broke Actress and just all of the acting podcasts you can, because I'm super type A. And I'm in my car all the time, so sometimes I get bored of music and I want to hear all the things.
Same.
Yeah, exactly. But as I was listening to all of these things, there's a lot of stuff out there on the business side of acting and how to logically make steps, which is helpful. But I was just, that can be so overwhelming sometimes when you have done all the logical things and it's still not working. And for me, I always say I will not burn out on the actual creativity of this and the performing aspect. That's like what I live for. But I will burn out on trying to keep a day job while trying to do this, while trying to have a personal life, while trying to still be creative, but also business, and negotiate and be cold-hearted in the business side, but like super empathetic when I'm performing. That is very confusing to me. So I wanted to kind of make a space to talk about the artistry and your personal life and how you're supposed to be a human while you're doing all of these things. Because I felt like most people were just talking about, you need to book this agent and book this thing and climb the ladder and eat, sleep, breathe acting, which I tried to do and is not, it's not really maintainable lifestyle.
Yeah. I was talking to Sky yesterday on, we ate a jelly. Heyo. And we were outside on the balcony talking about how George and I were specifically speaking. We do an episode once a week where it's just him and I, and it's a half an hour episode. And we want to take individual episodes to talk about how we literally got to where we are right now, just because where we are, feasibly speaking, is where most people are going to be right? Whereas you listen to Armchair Expert, which I love as well, and you hear these huge actors that are at the top, the 1%. And they speak about how they got there. And sometimes it feels almost otherworldly. It doesn't feel
truly.
as if it is the working day actor or working day musician getting to where they are, where George Michael quite literally started making beats in a study hall. And then, I don't know if you got a MIDI board or whatever it is, and now you have a SoundCloud, and now you're a resident DJ. So it's how those things happen for us quite literally while we're still maintaining day jobs and while we're still working to live our lives. And that is, I think, in some respects, equally as valuable as an armchair expert, because a lot of people are where we are. They're not at that top 1%. Because I
And
feel
it's
that.
nice to know that and not feel, it's very easy to feel like before I started doing my podcast, I felt like everybody was booking every week and I wasn't. And I was doing something wrong and everybody was on the billboards and I kept getting like called back but not booking. And then once I started talking to my friends who I really respect as actors and they have huge resumes, and then they were like, yeah, I haven't worked in a year. I was like, oh my God, thank God.
Yeah.
Like, I want you to work, but
but I'm not alone.
Yeah, exactly. And you don't feel like you're failing every day.
That is a big misconception that LA has as well. It's the duck thing, where everything is cool on the surface and you think everybody's cool on the surface, but underneath they're kicking as hard as possible because everybody's kind of like, what, you know, everybody's like, nobody, it's that, again, it's that double-edged sword of the positive of what we were saying, that everybody's doing something, everybody's making something. I remember the first time I visited LA with my parents. We went to a Nike store and my dad bought shoes, and the woman who helped us with the shoes was a screenwriter, and she was writing a screenplay, and I was in touch with her for a few years after that. I don't know whatever happened to her. God bless you, Tiffany McFadden. I remember her name, Tiffany McFadden.
Oh my God.
And my dad said, everybody's doing something. Why is she selling me shoes? She's a writer. And I go, well, I don't know and immediately looking back on it now, that should have told me everything about LA. Just from that one interaction. Because she was hustling, but you need this double life sort of energy where you do your day job to pay your high ass rent, the super expensive rent for not a big apartment. God bless this apartment. We love it. And you're trying to do that well because you don't want to shortchange that.
Right. And then you have to go home and make a tape.
And then you have to go home. And for instance, today I forgot that I had a self-tape where I need to get better at this. And it says you have 24 hours to submit the self-tape. I'm like, cool. So it's one of those things that you kind of have to have this double life, and people don't talk about the burnout enough, because I think that we all get burnt out. All of us. If you're constantly doing it, and it's not the craft that you get burnt out from. It's not the actual acting portion. It is for me, it's the high wire tension anxiety that I get burnt out from, which is, you got to fucking go and talk to this person. You have to make sure that you're turning this tape in like this. You have to make sure, not only are you turning the tape in, not only are you recording the tape on your own equipment, you have to edit it. You have to compress it. You have to make sure it's uploaded. You have to make sure that the sound sounds good. You have to make sure you're not pixelated. And on top of that, you're doing it for a job that pays you $150 a day, where you'll be on set for 14 hours.
Yeah.
And your day job might pay you more. So
literally,
it's kind of, again, I think this is actually very important, because it sounds like we're shitting on it, but this is all to say, you better fucking love it. Yeah. If you are not okay with that being your reality while you are striving and aiming past the target for more, don't do it.
Yeah. Well, I have moments too where I'm like, do I really, on a bad day, I'm like, do I love this enough? But then one of my friends who I did a short with last year, he wrote a feature and is going to film it in Texas this summer. And he had me read for it, and he was like, I'm going to be really upfront. I'm not giving a day rate. We're going to do, if it gets sold, you get a percentage of
Deferred.
the purchase price. Yeah, like that sort of thing. And usually I would pass on that because I'm going
Yeah.
to have to take time off my day job. But because I know him and I know his art and I read the script and it's better than a lot of scripts that I'm sent, because I'm non-union, I'm SAG E, but I'm not SAG, so I get the lower end of the scripts usually. But just reading his script and seeing how passionate he was about it and his pitch deck and all of the people that he wanted to bring in on it and seeing his passion for this thing that he was creating was enough for me to be like, yeah, I'll take this many days off of work and I'll do this for you, because I like that you are being about the art. You aren't about all the business things and the little things. I think that kind of every once in a while reminds me I do really care about this thing, not the red carpets and the money and all that stuff.
Isn't
What
that so
can-
interesting how like love and passion make us do irrational things? Like, yeah, I'm gonna
like,
take
that
off
doesn't
from
make
something
any
that's
sense at
helping me.
all.
I'm taking off days from something that's helping me keep a roof over my head in chance for something that it's probably not gonna give me anything on the front end, but or I don't even care about the back end. It's just it's feeding my soul.
No.
You know?
Yeah, and I'm just like, I think that goes to the relationship thing too, because I know him as a person and I'm really proud that he made something. And I want to be like kind of like what you said, Isaac, about being a supporter. I want to support the people that are in my circle making things.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that adds to it too.
That's important. I have a question about the union thing.
Mhm.
Sky and I talk about this a lot. What is your general feeling on, first off, union versus non-union, and I'm talking about SAG, and then FICOR. Are you familiar with FICOR? So FICOR is a separate union that you can join where you can work both SAG jobs and non-union jobs. However, you forego certain rights that a SAG member would have. So you wouldn't be able to vote, and I think you still get insurance. I'm not completely sure about that. But it gives the actor the opportunity to work both things while not having, you're just not in SAG. You're in something called FICOR.
Interesting.
So,
Yeah, I didn't
but
know.
why haven't you joined SAG yet? That's we can start there.
Honestly, because I've only done one SAG project, so they just Taft-Hartley'd me and
Good
sent me
shit.
on my way.
Good
So
shit.
I
You
said,
have another
sick.
one. You have another Taft-Hartley and an OK30. That's something else that I learned about.
So I have a while to kind of write it. And I think with where my career is, that's the smarter choice. Just because, like, I do book more non-union stuff, I guess. I mean, my manager usually sends me out for SAG things because it's more money and he wants to make more money too. But yeah, I wouldn't have been able to do, I did a short last year that was really fun and like fulfilling. That was non-union, and all of my friends that are making their own stuff, that's all non-union, and I want to be part of that still. So I think I'll probably wait until I have to, until I've booked so many SAG things that I have to decide. And I'm also still writing on my parents' insurance. So the insurance thing's not really a problem for me.
Yeah, that's smart. That's smart. And just for clarification, for George, for instance, Screen Actors Guild and AFTRA is the American Federation of Television and Radio Artists as well. So SAG-AFTRA is
I
a
would
union.
not have been able to say that full name. I don't know what the acronym's for.
So it's just the union that is there to protect artists and things like that. So but the thing about it that's tricky that people don't talk about a lot is that you got to pay to play to get into it.
You have to pay to be in it.
Unless you know somebody that can hook you up that's going to, and it's not even paying your membership dues. When you first join, I think I had to
There's
pay
an initiation fee,
$3,500. I think I paid $3,500
Whoa.
to just get into it. Yeah, so it
Because
was
I
a
think
wash.
the assumption is that, if you are eligible to join SAG, you just had a huge payday.
Correct.
Which isn't always true.
Correct. So when I was considering joining, I moved out here and I was SAG E. At least I thought I was. And that's what I would say. And it got me into doors, and it eventually
put
led.
that on your resume, SAG-y.
Yeah, I put SAG eligible right on there. And Taft-Hartley is when you are not in the union, but you're working a union job. the producers can Taft-Hartley you. I don't know where that word comes from or who invented it. I just know that they can Taft-Hartley you, which is essentially to send in paperwork saying, hey, this person that's not union is working on our project, and they're working as if they were union for this project. So you don't have to pay initiation fees. You don't have to pay membership dues. You get to work that project as if you were a member already, and you get 2 of those. So you can work technically 2 projects without being in the union, and you get all, for intents and purposes, all the accoutrement that SAG brings. And then you have an OK30, which I didn't know about until I called SAG. And an OK30 is, let's say you've already had 2 Taft-Hartleys and you get your 3rd SAG job. You sign an OK30, meaning that the day that you start shooting that 3rd job, you have 30 days to work as many union jobs before you have to join the union. So it's kind of essentially like a 3rd Taft-Hartley, but it's only for 30 days. So the whole reason why I wanted to just clarify that was because it is difficult to get into the union. You have to meet certain eligibility requirements. It's not just like, I'm an actor, I can pay those fees, I want to be in it. It's not that easy.
Qualifications, like you have to have a certain amount of films under your belt, or what?
You have to have a film credit for a SAG job, and the reason why it's difficult is, technically just 1. But the reason why it's difficult is because they won't look at you if you're not SAG eligible. People, producers, casting directors, it's hard to get into those doors if you're not SAG, if you don't have that on.
I feel like it's kind of, they think that you're, freshman B team instead of varsity.
Very green. They think that you're green.
It feels like.
Okay.
It's giving you just moved here and you don't know what you're doing and you're going to fuck up their set, is what they're afraid of.
Okay.
Correct. Because casting directors, you have to remember, they also are betting their job on hiring you. So the way that everything happens is a director, a writer, whatever, somebody has something they want to make. They find people that have money to produce it, the producers. And then they hire casting directors. So then casting directors essentially pitch themselves like actors, and they're like, hey, we can help you, unless they have, their big casting directors, and then people go and seek them out, type of thing. Anyways, the casting director is betting their paycheck, their mortgage, their kids' tuition on you doing a good job. So they want to hire the people that have the biggest reputation. It's a big reputation thing.
Yeah.
And I have talked to casting directors before that say, it doesn't matter, we'll bring in non-union people. But the way that I see things, I see people, and I'm sure we'll go over this with Sky when we have her on. She is one of the most talented people I've ever met in my life.
Same.
Sincerely. And it's hard for her to get into union doors. It's really difficult for her to get in there. And she's booked leads on non-union projects. She has, her resume is stacked
Huge
with that
resume.
stuff. And it baffles me, right? And then on the other end of the spectrum, this is something else I know I'm going off on you're the guest.
No, I want to hear this stuff
right now.
I don't know anything about this. This is interesting.
On the other end, let's say that you are SAG. For instance, I'm SAG. I haven't worked. I worked on a short film maybe 3 months ago or 2 months ago. I was a very small part in a SAG short film that's coming out on June 6th, which is at La Leaf in TCL. Yeah, so it was a lot of fun. Honestly, it was one of the most fun times I've had on set because I was being so dumb. I was just acting dumb. It was awesome. I was just being just Isaac idiot, which is great. Before that, the last SAG job I booked was a scripted podcast, which I also had a phenomenal time on. Neither one of these things paid very well. They were amazing, soul-fulfilling. I would do it again in a heartbeat. Before that, I had a Netflix movie in the top 10 for... Yeah, That's Amore. Please, go watch it. We actually just had the director on, and he was unbelievable. He was amazing. And I had the best time on that film. However, I had that movie came out last year in the summer. Top 10 for a month and a half or a month, something like that, whatever it was. I didn't work for close to 2 years before I got that scripted podcast. So being in SAG doesn't guarantee you anything. That's the other thing.
Yeah, it's another smoke and mirrors thing.
Yeah. It doesn't even guarantee you opportunities.
Yeah.
And it's wild just to navigate that as a young actor coming in, trying not to feel lonely, trying to all these things that we're talking about. So I think in order to kind of flip this on its head is, what are some things that you do to pick yourself up out of, and I know we talked a little bit about this on your podcast. I steal a lot of what the questions that you ask. I steal a lot of them
I love
for
it.
this.
I'm here for it.
But what are the things that you do to move forward when things like that happen?
I mean, there are sometimes I'm really good at just sending it in and forgetting about it. Sometimes that just really works. And sometimes if it's a role that I really know I could do really well and that I just got, that's a lot harder for me, because then my brain immediately goes to, it's because I'm not SAG. It's because they don't trust me on a set. It's because I haven't really done anything. So somebody else who's SAG probably got it, and I know I could have brought something to this that that person probably doesn't have. And not in a, super egotistical way, but just in, there are those certain roles that I'm like, honestly, this is me. Like, this is me, and I would have done this really well. Those are a lot harder for me to let go of. And honestly, like, I do the whole, like, I give myself a day to feel bad about it and be upset. And my best friend Lily, who's a dancer here, she's really good at, when we both have a bad audition, we just like rant about how much this sucks and how much I wanted that and how much I think I could have done a really good job and I don't know what else to do. And then the next day I go to my day job and I do another tape and I just move on. And then I try to focus on honestly, the podcast has helped a lot. It gives me something to do. It gives me something to get excited about art with other people who are artists. And I focus in on what my friends are doing that are artistic and they're passionate about. I have a friend who's writing something right now and he calls me and asks for my opinion on things, and that's really fulfilling. I just try to focus on the highlights of things and kind of remind myself some things just happen. Like, I did, my SAG job was for a Nickelodeon film, and I got that because I had been called back by a casting director from an audition from my manager for something like 5 months ago that was totally not Nickelodeon. It was like very rated R and very like a short, totally opposite. And then 2 days before this Nickelodeon shoot, my manager called me and was like, "Are you available this week?" I was like, yeah. And he was like, "Great. They don't need to see you. They just booked you. So you're going to be this role." And I was like, okay. So I think just having that experience and realizing that person that I auditioned for 5 months ago, that I did the callback for, that I felt really good about, and then felt devastated that I didn't get it, might come back around 6 months later or a year later or whatever. So
that's another positive about this industry, to be completely honest. I know we're just talking all this smack. Is you don't know the seeds that you're planting. You don't know where. ¿Dónde se van a sembrar? How do you say sembrar? How do you? I'm no
Bloom.
Blue. There you go. I was losing it in English. And you don't know where the fruits of your labor are going to manifest themselves. And that's a hard thing to do, and that's why it's incredibly important to be present out here. And I love that you take the time to feel bad about it. It's okay to feel. I completely understand that, and it's okay to feel bad about it. Let yourself process that, then get up and keep moving.
You said that the other day. Remember, you were like, you heard somewhere that if you fall, like,
Tim
stay
Grover.
down for a couple seconds down there so you can see what it really feels like.
Tim Grover. So the guy who was the trainer for Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, and Dwayne Wade. Legendary sports trainer. Legendary athletic trainer. He says there's this whole notion, the Rocky thing of get knocked down 9 times, get up 10. He goes, yes. However, don't get up right away. When you get hit, stay down. Learn why you got hit, why you're down. Then when you get up, you've iterated on that. You've learned from that. It's okay to feel down. When you get up, you'll know how to further yourself when you're up that next time. Hopefully. That's the goal, at least. That's the goal.
Yeah, I mean, there are some roles that, I'm not going to lie, it was more than one day.
I feel
we're
that.
We're still here.
Of course.
Bro, even having a movie out, there's a sense there was a weird little sense of depression that I had after that thing came out, because then I didn't get booked, and for a little bit I thought, is that all that I will ever do?
It?
Is that going to be everything that I do?
Yeah.
And some days I said yeah, and some days I said, here comes an expletive, everybody. Fuck that. I ain't gonna stay down there. I have to do something today. So what can I do today? And that's hard. That's hard to move on.
Isaac, why do you think you felt like that? Did you feel like that maybe because, man, I'm on a screen, you would think a bunch of people would be knocking on my door asking me to like do another role? Why do you think people feel like that?
Immediately, my immediate answers are, I didn't expect people to come knocking on my door, but the opportunities that I was getting were the same role that I had done in that movie. I probably got 4 auditions in the next month and a half after that movie came out that were all the restaurateur who was a Hispanic guy that this girl comes in and they fall in love. Pretty much. It was almost a carbon copy of the movie that I was in. Yeah. And in my mind, I thought, I know how to do this. I thought about the Matthew McConaughey stuff where he goes, I could do this with my eyes closed. That's why I had to stop doing the rom-coms. I had to stop doing the rom. You have to realize, then actualize, then recognize who you are moving forward, and then you become to vitalize who you are. So I just made that up. That was pretty good McConaughey. But
I have a question that you bring. I have a question after this, by the way, that we touched on before.
Okay,
go ahead.
I think that when I got those auditions and opportunities, I thought to myself, I got this in the bag to a certain extent, at least for a callback.
Right.
Didn't get anything. Didn't get any notices. And this is another thing about the industry. Those movies might never get made. So
right. I wish they would tell you that, though, because you like ruminate on how you messed this up, and the reality could be they didn't get it greenlit.
Exactly. Yeah. Or the money fell through, or they decided to change everything about the characters because the producer really liked this other lead girl who was Hispanic, so they changed the guy to a white guy. Whatever it is, you just don't know, and that's the hardest part. And I definitely I got into this deep depression because I kept seeing and we would have the movie playing in the background, so I was like, let's get as many hours as possible.
Right, obviously.
Yeah. And I would see myself on there, and it was to a certain point that I just had to turn that off because I would see that, and yet in my life nothing was happening. Yeah. So I think that I got a little down on that, and for me, creating this podcast has been incredibly helpful. It's just sometimes when I put on a creating hat, it blocks away that feeling of depression because I am creating something. So I'm not allowing myself to kind of feel shitty.
And it's something else to do, and people are relying on you. You can't just be like, no, I'm not going to do it today.
Yeah. So it's strange. It's just strange. I think that the life of an artist are these highs and lows, and the surfing mentality that we've all talked about. Yeah. You surf, you hit that wave, you feel great. The surf crashes, you look back and you go, well, it's time to paddle back out there and hit another wave. I got to keep surfing. So it's just this strange. I'm in a little bit of a place now where this podcast has provided so much joy and fulfillment that it's sparking me to want to create more. But then it's the question. I have this thing of, well, what am I creating? Why am I creating? It's like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
In life, which I think I have maybe 2 times a year that I always say, what am I doing? What WTF,
I say that every day.
Like WTF. So I don't know if that answered your question, George, but I think that's maybe why I had a little down. Okay, you said you had another question.
There's this one question I had. I forgot which episode it was, but our guest was an actor as well. And I asked both of you. Yeah, I asked you and our guest. I said, has there ever been a time that you guys have ever acted outside of your ethnicity? And both of you said no. So my other question, kind of to take it a step further for both of you, is have you guys played a role that's beyond who you are? Because you brought up Matthew McConaughey, and kind of when I think of him, I think of Interstellar. Like, he was beyond a Caucasian, even a man. He was an astronaut, or like an astrophysicist, if that's the way to describe him. So, have you guys ever played a role beyond just what your face value is?
I think that's so hard because...
Or do you think, if the answer is no, do you think it's because it's going to have to take time?
I don't even know if I'm in like a position to speak to this because, I mean, I'm a very privileged person. I'm blonde with blue eyes and like very typical like mean girl Hollywood. So I never had to come across like any resistance of, I'm not a minority. My culture is very quote unquote like American or whatever you want to call it. So I've never had any resistance in that sense. And I have friends who have had that. So I can't ever like speak to that experience. But I do get stereotyped a lot of the mean, bitchy cheerleader or just the girlfriend. And like women
like,
are more than the girlfriend.
Yeah.
I guess more specifically, have you been picked up for a role that's beyond, like you're saying, like your girl next door, all-American look?
Yeah. I think most recently, the same short that I did that I was talking about earlier, it was just a really good experience. Like, it was an ensemble and we all got along really well, and I was still me, but I guess a facet of me that is a little different than, like you were saying, my stereotype castability is. I was kind of like the cool girl in the gang of guys and was just like one of the bros, which is not something I get to play a lot. And I was kind of the like smarter one of the group. I kind of like kept the boys in check, which was a fun thing. And I wasn't just the side piece or like she's just here because the main guy needed a girl. So that's nice. And I think there are a lot more female roles, at least that I'm reading for, that are much more messy and much more dynamic than just, I'm here for the boy and that's it.
Yeah.
Which is nice.
Yeah, for me, the first things that just came to my mind is the only time that I ever played something that was outside of myself was in high school. I was Cyrano de Bergerac. Cyrano de Bergerac.
Yeah.
And it, well,
What'd you call my
I don't
mama?
even think. Yeah, what did you call my mom? I had a huge nose, a prosthetic nose. We went to a tiny high school too. It was a tiny high school. All right, George ended up leaving because he went to go play soccer, but I stayed. It was a tiny high school, and it was awesome. I loved it. Well, certain things. But I played that. That was outside of myself. Out here, I think the things that I've played outside of myself has been TV babysitters. Was when we had the sketch comedy. We had that sketch comedy thing going for a little bit on YouTube. I played outside of myself on that because I played a very socially awkward painter, which I loved.
That was the best episode ever.
I watch that and I laugh. And I go, wow! All right,
Who thought
cool.
Who thought of that script?
Alex, the creator. Well, what we would do, that was also something that was so vital for the beginning, being out here for me. It was us four, it was Sydney, Alex, Sky, and myself, and we would just all have 10 ideas, random ideas for sketches. We'd all meet up and we'd say, let's discuss what these let's just throw stuff out and see if anybody likes the idea. And we would throw some stuff out and we'd be like, it's like a good idea, but it was a lot to do and we didn't have the means to do it. So we go, let's try and stick to things where we can do it in our apartments or places that we know we could do it. Okay, so then we just found stuff, and towards the end of the second season, we got a little Kickstarter going, and we got money to shoot. What are you laughing at? You're laughing at some of the...
I'm just replay where you're just like...
Also, keep going. I'm gonna go to the bathroom really quick. I'll be
Go.
right back.
We pee all the time on this thing, so go for it.
He's just like,
The frame. That's like.
then he like looks at the TV, like the viewers. He's like, like you know what I'm saying.
I'm telling you, bro, that brought me so much joy. That's what like this little short film that I just shot was like. I was able to do dumb. Dude, I literally had, no joke, I had maybe, I think, 2 scenes in the short, and I improvised this thing at the end of one of the scenes that the main girl was doing, because she walks off the stage and she hands me a mic, and I get the mic and I'm kind of looking at it, and just off the cuff, I got the mic and I kind of looked at the camera and I went like this. And everybody just started laughing, like dying. I mean, cracking up because I just
became a blooper because no one stayed quiet.
And I'm not even joking. After I did that, they said, we have to add in a scene. We're going to add in a scene where he's going to just improvise being awkward like that. We need him to do that. I said, sounds cool. So I ended up doing that, and it was hilarious. But just to be more on your question, I think in terms of Hollywood, right? The things that I've done that have been outside of myself and I've also technically felt most free was Westworld. Westworld was one of those things that was, I felt as if I could do anything I wanted to within the realm of that. And I understood the show. I understood what they wanted. I watched the show. I got it. I understood. So I loved. And on top of that, the person I was acting against was just an unbelievable example of what a partner in a scene should be like, which you don't always get. What he was giving made me understand, oh, we can kind of mess around in this. It's not, I'm acting, this is Hollywood, these are the lines, I'm going to say the lines like this, you're going to respond like this, and the scene's going to keep going. It was loose. It was loose. And that's the time that I felt that. But aside from that, I don't think it's weird. It's weird. Acting classes, you get to kind of play a bunch of different stuff, which is why I think acting classes are so important. And I just had an idea because of what you were just saying, Faith, which was not an idea, something that I heard Emily Blunt talk about, where she said she opens a script and she reads stoic, no expression woman, and she says she closes the script right away because she's like, I'm so bored of this already. This is the same now. It's so weird because you typically will get the girl next door, blah 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 blah, all these things in the 90s. Think about She's All That, all these characters, all these female tropes, and then you move into the 2000s, and you can speak more on this than I can, obviously. But now it's almost like the pendulum has swung to the other end. So on sometimes, just going off with like Emily Blunt was saying, it's the stoic woman, the hard woman who has no emotions type of thing. And there's the variation in between. It seems where's the gray? Why is it either black or white? Where is the gray, right? What would you say that's how it's kind of, I mean, I don't know how it is. I just know what I've experienced, right? Just kind of being Latino and being out here.
I think there's a lot of space in between that we don't explore. I think now, because there is such, if you want to call it like a feminist movement or whatever, there is such a push for us having dynamic characters, which I think is important. But I don't think that means that your main leading lady can't be in love. Like, she can be a full dynamic human who is super independent and super successful and also have a very rich love life or have a very big problem in her love life. And she can be outwardly affectionate and invested in another person without her losing her strength and power. I think that is something that we can, have all the things of. But with you talking about being Latino, do you feel weird when people ask you to play into whatever their stereotype of Latino
Good
is?
question.
How do you navigate
That's a
that
good
when you're
question.
like, but I'm me? Like, you don't have a quote unquote accent.
Okay,
when you speak.
that was gonna be the first thing. I was literally gonna ask you, do I have an accent? That's something that I was actually gonna ask. Do you think that when I speak, does it sound to you like I have an accent?
No, to me, like if I didn't know you, I would say you're ethnically ambiguous.
Right
I
on.
wouldn't pin you in one place.
Just a little mocha frappuccino. So
Yeah.
it's that I think it's interesting. We spoke about this on another episode with a boy of our. Do you know? Well, he goes by Joaquin now, Joaquin Montez. But Lucas Perez, did you ever? I don't know if you ever met him. His name is Joaquin. He's was in my BFA class, so I started in 2011, and then we graduated.
That was
around the same
11.
time. You were 11?
Damn, we're old.
So, how do I feel? I feel old.
I'm happy we look young though.
Who said
Yeah,
you
you guys
just
look like babies.
yeah? All right, that's because of the crappy Wi-Fi. So we talked about it with him, and we talked about just getting these auditions for Colombian day player who is a drug lord type of thing.
Right.
And he was talking about whether or not he really tries to do a Colombian accent or do it as him, because he has a hard time vacillating on which choice to make when he's doing that. So for myself, something that really set me free personally, and I think it might be because I'm also not I don't consider myself PC. I consider myself leading with love and respect always, but I don't consider myself PC. I will always respect somebody, and I will always do things to make people feel not always comfortable, but I'm going to be kind. I'm a kind person, or I try to be. So
well, my friend and I were talking. I think nice and kind are two different things.
Yes, 100%. And I sent this to George Michael the other day with this guy talking. He goes, don't be a nice guy, be a good guy. And I think there's a difference between that as well. Yeah. Now, that doesn't mean that a good guy can't be nice. It just is, there's a difference between being good and having moral foundation versus just being nice because everybody's telling you that you have to be this way in order to be nice. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, going back to your question, it's hard for me because I've had producers, I've had casting directors, I've had directors say, really lay on the accent thick. And I go, what does that mean? You want Tony Montana? You want me to talk like this? I don't understand what you mean, bro. You want me to be like, oh, hey, girl, how you doing? I don't get what that means when you say, make it really Spanish. I just, to me, it doesn't compute. Yeah. So what I go to is my agent told me something one time that really set me free, which was just be you. Just be you. Don't try to be anything other than you. Just be you. And when he said that, it gave me the agency, the freedom and authority to just try my best. Just give it your shot. And what you're going to do, you can't necessarily worry about the way that other people are going to receive it. So I guess the way that I do it is, for instance, let's just take the movie that I was in where I played the Spanish chef from Spain. People were destroying me on YouTube. Destroying me. Saying, that guy is not from Spain, right? Destruction. And the thing that I was most proud of was, number one, my accent was consistent.
Yeah, it was the same the whole time.
Consistent. So whether or not it was accurate, it was consistent. Number two was I damn near tried my best to get it as close to somebody who's from Spain. I listened to Javier Bardem talk every day for hours, and I would repeat it, and I would do what I did. I would look at the phonetics. I would try everything. I even had Lucas, who is from Spain, show me how the lines would be said with an accent from Spain. So I had all these things, and I tried, and I worked, and I tried, and I worked, and I tried. And then number three, we had this guy on set one day who was from France, which is very close to Spain, and he came up to me. He goes, "Hey, are you from Spain?" And I said, "Why?" He goes, "You sound a lot like my friends that are from Spain." I go, "No, I'm not."
Yes.
But that's awesome. The fact that you said that. So that's cool. So I tried my best in that. And it's hard for me because if people have an issue, I don't. It's like this is what I got, whether or
Is
not
there a
even.
line that you won't cross? I have a friend who's Lebanese, and he was like, no shade to people who do. I can't, for my mental sanity, play a terrorist.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Because
Sure.
he
Interesting.
feels like that is like playing into the stereotype of his people.
Sure.
It's a good
I
question.
think for me, it's all based on material.
Mhm.
And my lines when it comes to, for instance, the Hispanic thing, it would be really hard for me to play. It would be hard for me to play a Fidel Castro sympathizer.
I knew you were
It'd
gonna
be
say
hard.
that.
It would be really hard for me to play
George
that.
is like, got it.
No, because
Yeah.
there's some things like in my life I don't do. I'm Colombian, so
Yeah.
both of my parents are Colombian. I feel very, very Colombian American. I tell people I'm Colombian American. I don't say I'm just from. I mean, I'm very pro America as well. Don't get me wrong, but like it's in my blood. I've traveled to Colombia hundreds of times. I still have family there. I told myself growing up, if I made pro soccer and I made a national team, I would pick Colombia for United States just off of that basis. But there's certain things in life in general I don't do because it will fit the stereotype of being Colombian. I mean, you guys can probably figure that. I'll let your imagination run wild on that, but there's just several
Like a
things I
samba,
don't
you
do.
wouldn't be
because I'm just like,
a samba dancer. You wouldn't be a dancer. That's what you're talking about.
no, that's not what I'm talking about. That's not what I'm talking about. Samba's Brazilian. What are we
I
talking
know.
about?
That's another thing. When I said samba, I was like, that's Brazilian.
Yeah. I know
No,
you're
but I
getting
feel
at
you,
that.
bro. I feel you.
So I knew you were gonna say that about like being a Fidel Castro advocate or things like that, because then it's like, why are you gonna lose yourself over something that's gonna last forever on the screen when you know that's not you?
Yeah, and then even after having said that, there's an asterisk to it because it's based on material, right? So my boy or a mutual friend of mine, his name is Robbie Ramos, and he wrote a play about his grandfather's experience as a political prisoner in Cuba during the whole Fidel Castro thing. And there were people in the play that had to play, or their roles were a military operative on the Castro side. So they played the villain, essentially, the antagonist of the play. I look at that, and I think to myself, within the structure of the play, that makes sense to me. Because
Right,
then
you're telling
that's
the story.
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So it would be hard for me to say no to anything. I have said no to certain auditions out here, but most of them just kind of include sexual content, to be completely honest.
Yeah.
That's where I have a hard time, is with sexual content, which I'm not against having sexual content in anything that I'm doing. It's just when it's for the sake of nothing, it doesn't make sense to me. It just doesn't make sense to me. Sometimes I see it and I go, somebody else might want to do this. It just don't make sense to me to do this thing. But when it comes to the idea of culture and race and sort of specifically being Hispanic, I don't know. I think that anything that would project sort of anti-Hispanic in a positive light, that's something I probably wouldn't do. I understand your friend where he doesn't want to play a terrorist because of that's his line. I get that. I completely understand that. I think for me, it's just hard to say no to anything unless I really see what it's about, right? You know, it's
totally.
To me, it's always about the story. That's why I got into this in the first place. It's always about the story. It's not about how people are going to perceive what I'm doing, because that's going to be subjective. But what about you? Is there any lines that you won't cross?
There's like a couple, especially with where we are as an industry, like moving forward, which I think is great. There are a lot of projects now that do tackle racism, which is super important. And like you said, if they need me to be the racist white girl, like who's ignorant, I'll do it if the message of the story is this is incorrect and we need to be moving past this. I won't do it if it's just a bunch of offensive things that I'm saying to another actor and there's no point of the story.
Sure.
Then I feel like I'm just like kind of emphasizing things that we shouldn't do, but then we didn't say that you shouldn't do it, so it's kind of confusing. But I do understand that, like, to tell the stories that need to be told, somebody does have to be the bad guy, and I'm okay with that if the ending message is, like you said, this is incorrect and we need to be progressing past this. So I do have some boundaries there, I guess. And I have a lot of boundaries on, especially I was watching a lot of 2000s films like recently, and there's so much talk about women's bodies and eating and things like that. And I have a big boundary on if the character that I'm playing, because very stereotypically that's what I look like, is like the bitch who's commenting on everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And if there is a lot of talk about that and we don't like go into depth on like why that's not okay and why that has led to a bunch of horrible things, I won't do it. I'll do it if the point of the movie is we're not doing this anymore.
Right.
But if it's just kind of in there, like it was in the 2000s, there was just like quips of like, don't eat and things like that, I won't do that. Like, I just can't stand by that. I guess like kind of what George was saying of that's going to be there forever. I don't want to be like, I want to be able to watch the things that I made with my kids one day and be like, yeah, I did that because look at this story, or look at what that meant, and be proud of it. So yeah.
Faith, when did you know you wanted to start acting?
I did my first show when I was 6. I was in Annie. It's very
Wow.
typical.
Who were you?
I was July, one of the orphans.
Wow.
And it
That's
was like
beautiful.
a 28 show run.
Wow.
So we did it a lot. Yeah, it was a long running show, and my mom was at every single show because I was 6 and she didn't want me to be left alone. And my sister was 3 and sat through every show. And then I did a bunch of other stuff growing up. I did gymnastics, cheerleading, volleyball, all of the things, but I kept acting within all of it. And my little sister and I played pretend all the time and put on shows for my parents and dance routines. And then I did shows in middle school. And then, yeah, high school was when I got really serious about it. But I just always liked pretending. And I think Isaac and I kind of talked about this. It gave me like a free place to explore different emotions than I was exploring in my life and feel kind of safe about it. And to connect with people in a way that I couldn't articulate, I think, when I was younger, of presenting them with this story and seeing how it changed how they felt. I thought that was really cool. Yeah, and then when I was in high school, it just became my personality. So
Is that where you saw the shift in more of like it's a hobby and to like where it's like, okay, it's a calling or it's something I can make something out of? Was it high school, you think? Or was it always like that? Because it sounds like you hit the ground running. I mean, making Annie, that's pretty serious.
yeah, I think it was kind of an always thing. I mean, when I was little, I wanted to be on Disney Channel so bad and draw the Mickey Mouse with the glow stick.
Hell yeah.
Like,
we all
that
did.
was my all-time dream. I wanted to do
I
that
was
so
looking
bad.
at my phone, and I think we all did that. Hugh was doing
Like,
that the other day.
One of our friends had an app that like if he was pointing
There's
to
an app
his...
that follows his hand, and he tried doing
So
that.
we told him to
Wow.
try it at the end. We told him to try at the end of the episode.
I wanted to do that so bad. But yeah, I think I was obsessed with wanting to be on TV from when I was really young. But I got serious about, I guess, the craft and the art and the connectedness when I was older in high school, and I think had the cognitive ability to realize kind of what it was and see how it affected and changed people and gave people an escape. I think that's really special. And everybody has, you know, a favorite film or TV show or movie that kind of propelled their life or changed their opinion. And I think that's really special. I had a teacher who said that our job as actors is to present all of these emotions that everybody feels but are too afraid to portray. And we get to present them and people get to feel connected to them and seen without having to kind of find that in their everyday life. And I think that's really special. So
That's interesting. Wow.
What movie or TV show or what film was it for you?
Oh man. I'm so bad at favorites because I'm such an indecisive person. So it changes a lot. But currently I'm a big fan of La La Land. I think we talked about this. People hate me for it.
God, I
love
love
La La
that
Land.
movie.
It is honest. There is not a happy ending. It shows the ups and downs of everything. There's beautiful music. There's great dance numbers, which is like the fun musical theater part of me. And it's just very honest of this is what we've all kind of signed up for. But I think I'm more get obsessed with actors than specific projects.
Okay, expand. Who?
Currently I'm obsessed with Zendaya, Sydney Sweeney. Who are my other favorites?
The rest of the cast from Euphoria.
All of the literally, I realized
Jacob
that as I
Elordi. You know the guy that plays the guy that looks like Mac Miller. What's his? I don't know what his name is.
Yeah, he was just a waiter in West Hollywood.
Yeah.
And
Guy
they
blew
found
up,
him.
huh?
I saw him. I met
God.
him at the Westworld premiere. Let me just pick up that name I just dropped on the floor. I met him at the Westworld premiere, and my man, I'm not gonna. Well, I'm already balls deep in this question or this story, but he was feeling it, and
Good for him.
he was the nicest guy in the world. He was looking for his seat, and I go, "Yo, what's good? I just want to say I think you're really great." Whenever he's like, "Oh, my man, thanks, man, thanks." And I said, "You good?" He goes, "Well, I'm just trying to look for where I could sit." And I go, "Well, there's seats up there if you could sit up there." He's like, "Oh, right on, right on." Him and his boy just kind of, they were in their
Right on,
own
right on.
worlds. They did not.
Hell
It
yeah,
was
brother.
cool to see because you could tell he was not that actory
Yeah.
feel. You
That's
know,
cool.
it reminded me like me with my boys when we would go watch a whatever on Friday night, and we would get blasted, and then we'd be like, "Where are our seats?"
Where are our
That's what it
seats?
reminded
Where's that?
me. Where are we right now?
Where are we? What are we watching
Okay.
again?
so you Zendaya, amazing. Sydney Sweeney, I haven't seen Euphoria that much. I don't because
She's in a bunch of other stuff now too, like
I
White
know.
Lotus.
Oh, I loved her in White Lotus. I loved her
yeah.
in White Lotus.
She
loved her.
just reality just came out. I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah,
but
I
it's
saw that.
her
That
new
came out too.
movie. She's a producer now. She's like really,
Yeah.
and I like her a lot because I don't know her, but she seems cool. But she like really put in the work. If you go back through her resume and how long
Yeah.
she's been doing this,
She was a kid.
she really stuck it out, which I like because people are like, "Oh, she blew up all of a sudden." Like, no.
That's
She put in
another
all this
fallacy.
effort.
That's another fallacy of it's the 20-year overnight success is what Hollywood is. Scott Eastwood, Clint Eastwood's son talks about that too, where everybody was saying, "Oh, well, you're Clint Eastwood's son. Everything was super easy for you." He goes, "Yeah, I was valeting cars from 9 p.m. to 3 in the morning for about 10 years, going to auditions at 10 a.m. the next day for about 10 years. But yeah, it was easy for me. It was an overnight
Yeah,
success."
super easy.
And I just refuse to believe that nepotism does exist. Nepotism does get your foot in the door, but I refuse to believe that people didn't work for what they still have to show up and do it. So you still got to show up and do it. And she's like a black belt in jiu-jitsu, by the way. Sydney
she's
Sweeney.
so
She's a
badass.
badass. She will fuck you up. She is.
Yeah.
She's a real one. Zendaya's amazing. She is
Amazing.
Even her too.
I
She's
like-
been
I
around for a while,
did-
trying to get shit
Yeah,
done before
she's
she
Disney-
got her moment of
Disney
shine.
Channel.
Disney. That's why I'm obsessed with her because I was obsessed with her when I was little. I was like, oh my gosh, she's like she was on Shake It Up, the dance show. I think that was past you guys, but
Yeah, I don't remember that.
Yeah, I remember that.
I thought she was the coolest. And then she just kept going. I did an audition for, I think season 2 of Euphoria for like a guest star. And I emailed my manager. I was like, I'm gonna be real. If I'm on set the same day that Zendaya or Sydney Sweeney are, I don't know if this is gonna go well. He was like, you need to pull it together.
Yeah. Get your shit together. That's how I felt when I did Westworld. That's how I felt when I did, because I was with Aaron Paul for days, and he was. George can talk about this. When we started college, Breaking Bad. That's another show that blows my mind because that show
Such a good show.
it almost didn't exist. It wasn't supposed to be Bryan Cranston. It was supposed to be Matthew Broderick. They wanted Matthew
Can't
Broderick.
imagine anyone else being in that role.
And so then Bryan Cranston got it. for the first 3 seasons, I think AMC at the end of every season would say, we're canceling you guys. You guys are not going to be able to come on. So then Bryan Cranston had to become a producer, put up his own money. And the reason why they continued on, if I'm not mistaken, is because of the Netflix push. So Netflix picked them up and everybody, it just was boom, because they started watching it on Netflix. So that show blows. And when I started college at UCF, which I wanted to touch on this a long time ago, which we can, but when I started college there, I started watching Breaking Bad, and Jesse Pinkman, Aaron Paul, was kind of the same age range as us in that show.
Yeah.
And I just remember thinking, man, if I could just do a sliver of that, I would be happy. If I get to that point in my craft, I'd be happy. And then here I am, years later, on the set of on the set of Westworld.
Breaking Bad.
And yeah, I know. And well, the crazy thing is, when I auditioned for the role, it had all these other names in the same scene, and I didn't recognize it. And I watched the show. I didn't recognize him, but I knew that Aaron Paul had signed on to be on the 3rd season. And I said to myself, I even told Sky, I go, I think that's Aaron Paul's character. And she's like, what? And I was like, I think that's it. And she's like, no way. So I pull up, they get us into the van, right? And I'm sitting in the van, and then the main cast comes, and I see this motherfucker get in the van. Damn, I'm starting to curse now. I'm getting excited. I see him get in the van, and I'm in the back of the van, and I see him in the front, and I was just thinking to myself, chill, dog. Just chill. It's good. You're good. Yeah, you're good, dog. You're good, homie. It's all good. No big deal.
It's fine.
You know, whatever, dog. I got fucking stripes in my head.
Dog,
just chill,
dog.
bro. This haircut that I have, I'm cool, bro. I'm chill. And so
Having like 3 conversations in your head before you even meet him.
bro, and if you could see me, my face is probably like this.
like Michael Scott.
Thanks,
Yeah, bro. I was
The Michael
so,
Scott.
We pull up to the place, and this is what I mean about him. This is why I got to give him all the props in the world. I don't really get starstruck, to be honest, because my parents always said, you
same.
cut
There's
them.
like a couple people.
Exactly. You cut them, they bleed red the same as
yeah.
you. But anyways, when we got to the place, he opened the door, and he helped every single person off of that shuttle. And every single person that he helped off of the shuttle, he'd go, hey, how's it going? I'm Aaron. So when he helped me off, he was like, hey, how's it going? I'm Aaron. And in my head, I was going to be like, yeah. Yeah.
Goddamn right.
You're goddamn right you are. And then I was like, hey, what's going on? I'm Isaac. He's like, hey, Isaac, nice to meet you, man. Looking forward to it. I'm like, yeah, me too. And then he was just the coolest guy in the world. I made Cuban coffee for him. Like, I asked him, like, hey, do you like coffee? He's like, yeah, I like coffee. And I said, dude, have you ever had Cuban coffee? He's like, And I said, if you have to think about it, you've never had it. So I made it from him, and I go, yo, just take a little sip of it because it's strong. And towards the end, I ended up shooting another episode, and towards the end, he's like, bro, you got any more of that coffee? Well, and this is something else testament to him was when we shot the next episode, he walked into the trailer of hair and makeup, and he was like, yo, Isaac. Literally, that was him. He literally said, I was so happy to see your name on there. And I was like, what? Is
How
this
surreal was that,
fucking
man?
real? What is happening?
It's like the camera's on you now. Like,
it was crazy. And then he gave
Wow.
me the best advice also. I worked with him 3 days on the second episode. And I gifted him a cafetera with like Cuban coffee stuff and how to make it and stuff like that. And he gave me the best advice, which is something that helps me continue on when I don't want to. Which he sunned me. You know when an older person kind of taps you on the cheek and they're kind of, I call it sunning you. He sunned me.
like the Godfather.
Yeah, and he gave me the biggest hug. He goes, that was the nicest, because I wrote him a really nice letter. You know, just pretty much expressing how much he meant to my journey, and how they always say don't meet your heroes because they might not live up to it, but
It might disappoint you. Yeah.
yeah, but he surpassed everything in spades. And he just sunned me, and he goes, you're going to go far in this industry because you show up prepared, you have good work ethic, but more than anything, you're a good person. And that will take you a lot further than you think. You'll see. That's going to take you a lot further than you think. Because I made Cuban coffee. I shit you not. I probably made Cuban coffee 25 times in one night.
You brought your whole
because
setup,
people
right?
wanted it.
People
Bro,
were like, Okay.
And it was an overnight. We started shooting at 8 p.m. and we didn't leave till 10 a.m. So
Yeah, so you need it.
yeah. So everybody was like, bro. And Marshawn Lynch was there too. And Marshawn, I was like, you want coffee? He's like, I want Henny, bro. Where's the Henny at? I'm like, oh, bro, I ain't got that.
Can't help you.
I ain't got that. He's the best, dude. He's the nicest guy in the world. But it was just one of those things that whenever I get low, I think about that moment and think about being a good person. I think that's a good question for both of you guys. When you get low, what are some of the talismans or marquee things that you guys think about when you're in those moments?
George, do you want to go?
I'll go. Yeah.
Okay.
Me. No, I already have it in mind. I'm just being stupid.
Okay, great.
And what I'm gonna say is I don't do this to deflect of what I'm feeling. I do this to give perspective. I'm like, dude, someone's got it worse than me, man. You know, or if there's something you're doing that you are passionate about, but you feel like it feels like work and you're not enjoying it. I'm like, dude, some people wake up and don't have shit. You know, whether it's a homeless person, whether it's a person that their family disowned them. So I just try to tell myself things could be a lot worse. And I think that I learned a lot of those type of putting yourself in a mindset to keep moving forward from soccer. Like I owe a lot to my parents and them putting me into soccer and not letting me quit the times I didn't want to carry on because it felt like a job. I think, yeah, it's just perspective. But like I said, I don't do it to deflect because I've learned that like you got to feel that shit. Like you got to feel down sometimes. And even sometimes when I get I get a good idea or I get a gig or I get something that goes into my favor, it's kind of like I go back to soccer. Like say if we score an early goal, there's at least 2 or 3 guys on the field. Like when we go and celebrate, we're like, yo, it's 0-0. It's 0-0. We have to play like we didn't score. Just carry on. Yeah. So even in the positives, I try not to get too high or get too low. Like, and Isaac knows me. I'm not overly emotional. I mean, I can be an emotional guy, but I'm not impulsive. I don't look to try to do the most or the least. I just try to carry on. My great grandfather had a phrase that in Spanish it goes "todo pasa," which is everything happens. This too shall pass, in a sense. So, I that's one aspect, and then another aspect is I kind of forgot it, but it's You can go ahead, Faith, and then if I remember, I'll pick back up on that. Because there was two methods I used, which the first one I mentioned is probably the majority of the time, and then another one is for like other circumstances. But you can go ahead.
You know, few small minutes can last you a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
Like a few solid minutes of performing and being seen. And not only do I feel super seen when I'm performing with a scene partner, because you have to be so connected to each other and in something together. That's a very unique type of scene. But also on set, just hanging out and being with people that kind of just understand your world, understand your lifestyle, understand. For the most part, I've been very fortunate to be on sets with like beautiful people who care about the same things that I care about, mm-hmm. and are willing to just like shoot the shit and talk and bring up their favorite things. And it just feels like a very what do you call it, like high intensity connected conversation versus your everyday conversations.
It's very fulfilling
in everyday life.
Like it fills you up.
Yeah, which is I think really lovely and just what gets you through it. And then in the life sense, it sounds cheesy, but the thing of thinking about like 8-year-old me would be astonished that anytime I'm like, I haven't done anything. Like, what am I doing here? Been here for this amount of time. Haven't done anything. I'm not good at this. I'm not good at that. I don't have this. 8-year-old me would be like, oh my God, I live in Los Angeles. I've been on the Paramount set. I have a manager. I host a podcast. I have all these
Amazing.
loving people in my life. Like all of the things that when you feel awful about yourself, you don't want to acknowledge. For some reason, for me, bringing little me who was like dreaming of these things, who had multiple people say that I couldn't do it, would be so excited. And that for even just a day is like, yeah, I did what I said I was going to do. And maybe I won't succeed to the top of the 1% of everything, but I did what I said I was going to do when I was 8. And that is like an accomplishment within itself.
I just had a thought. And it's connecting Odell's episode to you specifically, because Sky and I talk about you. We don't talk about you often, but we talk about you. we do talk about you. And one of the things that always comes up in conversation when we talk about you is the fact that you came out here with the right mentality. That you came out here wanting to get into a class, wanting to put rubber to the road, so to speak, and things like that. And we had an episode with a buddy of mine. His name is Odell, and he was born in Cuba. He moved to Chile. Where was it, George? Chile? No, it wasn't Chile.
No, it was Mexico, wasn't it?
No, it wasn't Mexico. I'll remember it. Anyways, Venezuela.
Venezuela. There we go.
It was Venezuela. And then
ironic.
He moved to, I know, from Cuba to Venezuela, and then to Miami, and then out to LA. But one of the things that sticks out so much, he wrote this book called My Giant Ego, I can't even say gigantesco ego, something like that. Anyways, talks about aiming past the target. When the military trains snipers, they don't train snipers to hit the target, right? They train them to hit past the target. And he talks a lot about that with us, specifically as artists. And I'll tie it into why I had this thought. It's this thing of the 8-year-old self is so proud. I love the saying where the only two people you have to make proud are your 8-year-old self and your 80-year-old self. I love that saying. I think we talked about that a little bit on your podcast. And I agree. Your 8-year-old self would be so proud of you. And the reason why I bring up the idea of aiming past the target is because you have the right mentality. So I don't say this to everybody, but I really do believe this with you, is that if you set a goal for yourself, aim big, because you got what it takes to survive. So you already know you got that down. Aim big, because you can achieve a lot, because you've already proven that you have what it takes to work. So don't be afraid to aim big. And your 8-year-old self, your 8-year-old self's always going to be proud of you. That's the good thing. Check.
Right.
You can check that off. But you have what it takes to go to a place where you're going to make that 80-year-old self proud as well. Mm-hmm. So don't be afraid to aim big. I don't know if you are. I'm not saying that you are. I'm just saying you can do it. And I don't.
No, I think that's an important point, to have both at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I don't say that to a lot of people. I think everybody has the capacity within them to do it, but I don't think a lot of people hold the power in themselves to do that. And I think that you have proven that you have power. So aim large, or I guess aim past the target is what I'm trying to say. Because you've done it. You got on the Paramount, you have a manager, you're hosting a podcast, you're literally doing stuff. Same thing with George. I think the same thing of George. We have a very small group of boys that I think there's 5 of us. How many?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's 5 of us that we've known since we were all 4, 5, and 6 years old.
That's crazy.
All of them, in their own respective right, I pray constantly to have them realize the uniqueness that they all hold, and the power and the space that's been proven. So aim past the target. Because I really believe that there are certain people that inherently are good, inherently hold this thing inside of them that a lot of people don't have. It's this speck of light that if you just continue to focus on aiming past the target with who you are and maintaining that, you're good.
I had a problem with that for a while too. Not recognizing
being a speck of light.
No, it's just like when you're so deep into your passion and it's so embedded in you, you just feel like it's normal, and it's not. Like, what we do is not normal, not to kind of toot our own horn, but
Yeah.
it helps to have people around you mention, like, dude, like, how's your DJing going, bro? How's your music going? I'm like, it's fire, dude. You know, it's chill, you know, same shit, different day. And they're like, nah, dude, you don't. Especially Isaac, a lot of times, he's like, or my dad. Because I think when it really clicked for me a couple years ago was, like, it clicks sometimes and then it goes away, and then it clicks sometimes and then goes away. But one time it clicked and it kind of stayed with me for a while, since till to this day, is before the pandemic, I was working for a company that we made music for commercials and brands. And my dad was like, hey, how's the job going? I was already like a year and a half in. I'm like, it's awesome, man. It's so easy. It doesn't make sense to me. It's so surreal that they're paying me to do this. And it's like, I feel like I'm sneezing and I come up with an idea. And I was like, it's so easy. And he cut me off and he's like, no, it's not. And I'm like, yeah, it is. I make music for a living. And that's what I've been doing for at least half my lifetime. And he's like, you don't get it. No, it's not easy. It's easy for you because you're so in it. But my dad's like, I'm in the music industry too, but more on the business end. But if you ask me what was the first thing I need to do to accomplish what you're doing, I wouldn't know where to start. So he didn't say what I'm about to say next, but the message I took from that is, don't think so small of yourself. You know, like, or not even that, like, realize that you're thinking very small of yourself. Realize that like what you're doing is bigger than what you really think it is. And I think that's kind of to go back what Faith said. If you put yourself in the mindset of what would the 8-year-old you standing next to you seeing what you're doing, their eyes would just blow up and being like, this is who I am now, you know? And like I said, I struggled with that for the longest time. I was just like, man, I guess what I'm doing is just whatever, you know? And it's not. Like, what we do, we're if you're in the arts, you're creating magic for the world. Yeah. You're creating something that's making the world turn. And, like, we're stopping world, like, wars, in a sense. Imagine a world with no music or no art. Like, this world would be a cold and darker place as ready as it is. So it's like, we're feeding the world stories, happiness, emotion, all that wrapped into one. And I think it's very important to keep that concept, like you said, Faith, of, like, just think of, like, when times get rough, kind of the earlier question you asked, Isaac, like, what do we do when we're, like, things aren't going in our favor? And it's not to deflect, it's just to help you carry on, instead of just saying, like, fuck it, man, I don't want to do this shit no more. And then if you make that decision, you're like, oh, I made the wrong decision, I should have stuck it out. But, like, that 8-year-old self would definitely be proud of seeing you making something out of your own imagination, like walking that walk instead, and seeing people that are from your childhood that don't do that, and they remind you of, man, you're really doing it. Like, maybe not to the extent of, like, the top tier, but you're on that journey. And that a lot of people are scared to take. Like, success is scary, man. We had a friend that Bianca, who's like the ultimate go-getter we knew growing up, and I remember she telling me, she was like, if your dreams aren't scaring you, you're not dreaming big enough. Like it's supposed to scare you. Like, it's supposed to scare the shit out of you, because it's something that's it becomes something bigger than you. And like Isaac said, if you don't accomplish the goal, we downplay it so much. And if we don't accomplish that goal, like they say, aim for the moon. If you don't end up on the moon, you're amongst the stars. So, like, kind of, I think, go ahead, because you were saying, like, it kind of scares us and stuff. And
yeah, it's like, I don't know if you guys had this experience, but as an artist, this also might be a chip on my shoulder because I'm a girl, but I had a lot of specifically guys who thought, like, when I said I was an actor, that I wasn't very smart, or that I wasn't articulate, or, like, that was the only thing I had going for me, quote unquote. And not to, like, brag about myself, but I was a great student. I, like, had a good GPA. I took all the AP classes. And when we went in for UCF orientation, you know, you have to fill out on your form, like, how many credits you have and whatever.
Yeah.
I was filling mine out, and the kid sitting next to me, who I'd never met before, he, like, looked over and was like, I thought you said you were an actor.
Whoa.
I was like, yeah, I am. He was like, oh, I didn't know you were, like, smart. So I think there's this
Oh, I didn't know
weird
you were
thing
dumb.
about
I didn't
Right.
know you were dumb, sir. Wow.
it's like,
But now we know both
what are
things are
you
true.
gonna
Yeah.
major in?
Yeah.
Business?
Yeah.
Like, I think there's this weird feeling, at least for me, that I chose the easier way, which isn't at all the easier avenue.
Yeah.
But people, at least in my mind, view artistry as a less academic, easier route.
Mhm.
And so then I present it that way. Like, I catch myself doing it all the time. When people are like, oh, what do you do? I'm like, oh, I'm an actor.
Like in a forgiving tone,
Instead of,
right?
like-
You're almost like,
Right.
yeah.
Instead of, I'm an actor. That's it.
Yeah. That I heard Lisa Kudrow, who played Phoebe on Friends, talk about that. That it took her years and years and years and years to not say in a forgiving tone what she did. And then one day when somebody asked, she goes, "I'm an actor." It was not like,
Period.
oh, yeah,
I
I'm
did
an
that for the
actor.
longest,
yeah.
man. I was
Yeah.
very,
Yeah.
I tiptoed around it, or I wouldn't say it with my chest out, not to like be overly confident,
Yeah.
but it's like, yeah, or not like he said earlier, like if I didn't tiptoe, I would just be like, yeah, I make music, because to me it was normal. That's just like
Right.
if someone said, like, I'm a chef, like it's just that's all you don't know any better, you know. So, but when you start getting perspective from your peers, you're like, you know what? No, I do this. You got to own it, and you got to own the power that it comes with,
100.
because the
Yeah.
influence it can come with. So, because
Yeah, I
before
think
some
that
people be
comes
like, oh, I
from-
need somebody. Like I realized if certain ways, if I say it a certain way with a certain level of confidence, someone will come back to me and find in their mind of, oh, this person's looking for a DJ, or hey, this
Mhm.
person, like, this person now is gonna say, oh, where can I find your music? But if you just say like, yeah, I just make music, you know, just dabble in it, people are not
Yep.
gonna be inclined to
Ask you.
ask you about it. And when it's really like you're more than just a aficionado, like this is something that you breathe. This is something that you like, you studied. Like there's one thing I was gonna say about when you said about people saying that they don't think you're smart because you guys are actors, but every friend I've met of Isaac's or that he's introduced me to, especially because I met a lot at UCF, I've never
Mhm.
met any more people that are any more intellectually sound or so aware of how they articulate themselves, or so aware of how they express themselves, whether that's even if they're being unapologetic or they're just being very in the moment and happy. It's so embedded in them that they know what they're expressing, but they own it in a sense that it's second nature as well. That's weird that people have told you guys that.
Oh, man.
Now I understand the way
Oh,
Faith
man.
articulated it, where people are like, oh, so like you just rely on creativity.
Yeah.
But to like understand a craft, you have to be a student of the game, and I think acting is one of the biggest ones. Like I don't think I've ever. There might be some, but majority of actors I've met are great at reading. They like to read, and they just engulf themselves in the art. Because you kind of have to, if you want to break the rules, you gotta understand all the rules in whatever craft you work on. So a lot of people I've met.
You've dropped quite a few Little George Michaelisms.
Yeah.
This episode, bro. Those are quite a few George Michaelisms.
I've never met so much happier, but also very intellectually intact people, via Isaac when it came to like when he was at UCF and I was at Full Sail, or even just like around the playwright world.
Yeah, I personally, because I feel you on that, Faith, with what you said. When I tell people that I'm an actor, they kind of don't necessarily think that it's.
Oh, so you don't have a real job?
Yeah.
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 What
it's
do you
not-
really do? What's your day
Yeah.
job?
Yeah.
No. What do
You
you
know?
really do? What do you really do?
Yeah. So it's funny because I was a great student as well, and
Mm-hmm.
I
It was
dropped off from
effortless for
taking.
you, man.
Yeah, school came very easy to me, and I
See, I'm the
stopped.
opposite. I like had to work at school.
Yeah, no, school was something that was it. I don't want to say came easy. No, it definitely came easy. And
I
then
envied you
it-
for that.
because it was just something I don't understand why. I stopped putting in effort, which is why my grades started to slip, right? When I found out, oh, I can go out on dates. Oh, pot. Then
Oh.
things stopped too.
I don't have to study as hard and I'll still make a passing grade. What?
Yeah, and then I was like, oh, I'm not going to Harvard anymore. I will choose a different school. It was not something that I was necessarily, and I could maintain an A average with that mentality. Anyways, I definitely had to grow up from that because that was not beneficial. That was just something that I had to go through. I had to learn how to put effort in. But I personally love it when people underestimate me. I
I'm like, bitch,
love
watch.
it. I love it when they think that I'm dumb. It brings me so much joy to see them ask me a question, to see their response, to see their faces when I respond to it, and they're kind of baffled. I love that because I've had it happen to me, even out here. I have had a casting director tell me, find another job. You'll never make it in this. Find another career. You will never make it in this industry. I think we talked about that a little, but he literally told me that. And when he said that to me, which I'm very proud of myself now, I said, thank you, sir. Appreciate your advice. Is there anything else?
Oh my gosh.
And he was just kind of like, no, and I go, thank you. Have a good day. God bless. And I hung up because I was like, and now when that person tells me that, now I have to do something. That's the bad thing about me is when somebody says you can't do that, then I'm like, well, now I have to do it. Now there's no choice.
You leave me
now
no
I don't
choice.
have a choice. Yeah, now you have brought upon the wrath of God on top of you. So now I have to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So, but when it comes to these intellectual conversations, I absolutely love it because I also think that I learned from my mom how to see perspectives, how to empathize. My mom is a very empathetic person. And I was raised around a lot of women, period. And she taught me how to understand what other people are, what they're going through. And then I learned from my dad how to argue. Then I learned from my dad how to argue. So it's one of those things that I know how to have a discourse, while never crossing a boundary that we can't actually talk. And I've had plenty of people that get heated with me. And I say, this is what I think, and this is how I've learned this thing, X, Y, and Z. So that's a really interesting take, especially in college. God, people are so stupid in college. Come on, especially when you're coming in on a freshman orientation. How dumb was that? I was so high during my freshman orientation. I remember I met my roommate, and he had a steamroller. And he was like, you want to hit a steamroller? And I go, dear God, do I? So,
God, do I?
I remember my first orientation day for Full Sail. Oh my God.
I was, but you were probably at our crib right before. Oh God.
It was we had to come in with the new laptop that they gave us and install it. And we were in an auditorium and there was somebody in the front giving like a master class on how to just connect your computer to like Full Sail system. Dude, I showed up like 5 minutes late, like 5-10 minutes late. And it felt like when you show up late for a Blue Man Group event, everything stops.
My God.
Everything it felt like in my mind everything was stopping, but it was more so of like just to get to my seat. It was dark in there, and then the lady was like, "All right, well, you guys are gonna open up your laptop and start installing it." And since I was late, everybody had their laptop open, so I just sat there and didn't open my box, and she was like, "You're gonna need to open your box, sir." And like,
oh my
I was
God.
like, okay, we're doing this. You would have thought I'd never seen a MacBook in my life, and I'm the biggest Apple guy ever. Just
I know.
Blasted, just like, I don't want to do this right now. I don't want to do this right now. I just want to sit and listen. I don't want to think right now.
I have a really funny Blue Man Group story, which will make it super brief and quick. I was in college. And we get to Universal, and I was going to go see Blue Man Group, and we were in the parking lot, and we decided to take mushrooms. So,
oh my God.
I ate some. Oh God, this is so nerve-wracking. I ate mushrooms. I forgot about this. I just my brain just kicked into
Resurrected it.
Yeah, when he said Blue Man Group, I was like, oh. So we took mushrooms. We're sitting down in the auditorium, and the show starting, and I just remember hearing doom 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 doom, and the mushrooms started kicking in. I was like, oh my god! And then throughout the course of the show, they would call people up, and they would have this huge spotlight going over the entire audience, and they would stop it on one person and call the person up. And I just remember every time, and they would do that a few times throughout the show. And I just remember every time saying, please, God, don't call me. Please, God, don't call me. I was so anxious the entire show. I had a great trip. It was like,
I hate shows like that.
Oh my God. The trip was amazing. I had a great time, and I was like, what? These people have blue faces. Like, it was awesome, but it was also so nerve-wracking. That's my Blue Man story, Blue Man Group story. Just, if you're going to take mushrooms and go to Blue Man Group, just realize you might get called on stage.
Wait, so when I transferred to Full Sail, and I was getting my room and board,
I'm gonna go pee.
They didn't have my dorm room ready, so I actually stayed the first week in Orlando on Kyle and Isaac's couch when they were living in the Abyss.
Oh my God.
So you know, I mean, you're probably not aware of like the lifestyle we were living, but you could kind of guess.
The lifestyle.
Of just being a college kid. So
You know, just college guys.
yeah,
singing.
just acting careless. So yeah, what he said, I was probably at his dorm before I went to that orientation, and that's why I showed up late.
Probably accurate.
It was a fun time. It was a fun time. Definitely a fun time. But you weren't at UCF when Sky and Isaac were there then, because you're a lot younger than us, right?
I was there when I was there for a year with Sky.
Okay.
So like I was a freshman and she was a senior.
Okay, so
I
you're
was
not that
never
much
there
younger
with
than us.
Isaac. No, I'm 23.
Okay.
So
Okay.
not that bad. But yeah, I didn't drink in high school at all. I was always DD.
Mm-hmm.
Like my friends would call me at like midnight and ask me to pick them up.
Me too.
So the first time I ever drank was like end of freshman year of college.
Whoa.
Like, very end.
How was that experience? Did you go off the rails? Like you didn't know how to gauge it?
It was a time. No, like the first time I drank, it was with my friends in my class.
Okay.
And I only drank a little bit. And I was just like a little buzzed. And also I'm a lightweight. So like I can take 2 shots and be like good to go.
Okay.
But then after that, my sophomore and junior year, we were all like certified alcoholics. Like it would be 8 a.m. and we'd be drinking and trying to memorize Shakespeare. Like,
Yeah.
I love what I just walked back into. That was awesome.
The reason why I asked that about like, did you go off the deep end to start? Because I remember one time we went to like a birthday party and we'll call her a cousin, but she's like a family friend, and she's like, she's about like 10 years younger than us, so she's about 20, 21, and she got destroyed that night. And I
definitely had those.
Yeah,
nights.
and my sister's like kind of chuckling at her, but helping her out as well. Hold on one second. Can you guys hear that? Speaking of the devil, she's calling me right now.
Oh my God.
My sister's like helping her out, but kind of like laughing at everything she's doing. And I'm like, man, why'd you guys let her do this? Like, get this so fucked up. And we
all just have to do it.
She's like, she's a young adult. She can make her own decisions. I was like, yeah, but like after a certain amount of drinks, there's no turning back. She's like, well, how did you learn? I was like, by getting fucked up.
You learn. It's
by getting fucked up.
Lesson.
The only way you learn the stove is hot sometimes is if you put your fucking hand on it. That's really it. It's true.
Because we did mostly house parties, and like there were a couple houses that were like the main house party houses.
Yeah.
And David,
did you guys have the greenhouse
know.
when you were in college?
So.
You guys have the greenhouse or no? Oh, okay.
I don't think so.
Sorry, continue. Sorry.
I did hear stories about the greenhouse. But our professor David would know when we would have a party, and we'd all have to be at rehearsal at 10 a.m. the next day. And this man would come in screaming because he knew we were all hungover, like banging the sword on the shield. Like, everybody's going to give us 10 burpees before we start.
Oh my God. What a guy. I like him. I wish I would have had him.
He was great. It was.
Did you have Trevin? Did you ever have Trevin Cooper?
Mm-mm.
Oh.
No.
Let's talk about teachers for a second, because I think this is an important subject.
Okay.
Teachers are so crucial to development, period. Trevin Cooper was one of the great. He taught Theater History 1. I had him for Theater History 1, Theater History 3, and Voice for Stage or whatever. This
But
man is still somebody that I think about to this day. Because theater history is not necessarily the most flashy subject that somebody could teach. And he made it so enthralling, and he cared so much about his students. I will never forget what he said to me when I turned in my thesis at the end of the year, whatever it was, because I would probably be in class high. No, I'd probably hit a goal right before I went, and I never really talked. And then I wrote my paper, and at the end, he handed me the paper, and before he handed it to me, he went, and he said it quietly. He goes, "I'm going to tell you something, Mr. Rossi." I go, "Yeah, what?" He goes, "I think you are incredibly intelligent." And I will never forget him telling me that. And him saying that to me, I remember thinking, oh my God, that was I was not expecting that from a college professor.
Right.
That was the nicest thing in the world he would say things like that to each individual student. He was incredible. And David Reed, that's what Sky tells me. She says David Reed was one of those teachers that affected students. Who were teachers, or what sort of, actually I have a direct question aside from teaching for you, Faith. What is the worst piece of directing advice that you've ever gotten? And what is your style of liking? What kind of direction do you like?
Interesting. Respond well to just, that was bad. Like, what am I supposed to do with that? Okay, noted. Like, I already think that about myself all the time. Like, I don't need you to tell me. So I think I respond best to when teachers are willing to explore it with you and kind of walk through like why I made the choice that I made, and not why it was wrong, but why you could also do all these other things. I think that's helpful. I also think it's helpful, like on set, if you want a very specific thing, just specifically tell me exactly what that is, so that I'm not guessing. Because especially in film, if you want an exact thing, I can do that. You just have to tell me. Don't like sidestep around it.
Like what? Like if you want them to be,
sometimes
angry, what is it?
More so on set than in theater. If they want a very specific, because for this beat that we filmed 2 days ago to land, we need this to land. If they're just like, I actually needed this to be faster. I just need you to say this faster. But I'm like, okay, great.
Exactly. To talk about, because that's what I love about this. Hey, welcome back.
You're like HD now.
Wow, you are
like
HD.
Wow.
You are
like
HD now.
now.
Okay, so you were saying talk fast. Just hit this beat faster, things like that, and
Yeah,
I
respond
get
well to
that.
that. I respond well to collaborating. If you want to talk through it with me, I like that. What I don't respond well to is direction like, be more vulnerable, or like that just doesn't help me. That just makes me feel like I'm doing something wrong, and then I'm overanalyzing. And I think there's a lot in the way that people present it. There was a specific teacher at UCF that really did not like me for whatever reason. And they one time cleared the whole classroom, except for me, to tell me, if you don't become more vulnerable in your work, you're only going to ever be an understudy.
What?
And then brought everybody back in. And then a week later, the cast got posted for our shows that year. And guess who wasn't an understudy? And I walked back into her class and I was like, so you're going to come see the show? Or no?
Wow.
So, yeah. I don't respond well to being singled out and like in front of people being reprimanded. I'm not a child anymore. Like you can't. Let's have a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's wild.
comes the time.
I mean, I
Yeah.
You're not recording. You gotta leave and go back in.
All right. Let's see. And bye.
Bye. What
We
was
love
that commercial?
technology when it works.
That was a fun commercial with those little minion looking things, right? Wasn't it? It was for like a phone company, was it?
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? It was
I'm
like
not gonna
bye,
remember what
bye.
it's called. Bye.
Who's the host now? You're still the host, right?
What if it was me? What if I
You're
commandeered
like
this?
HD
Well,
now
I don't
too.
know. I don't know why that happened. And I have a brand new computer. You don't understand how annoying it was before. My mic would cut in and out. And you probably
No.
listen. It was horrible. I
Yeah.
bought a new
Yeah.
computer and I said, screw it, I'm buying a new computer. That's
Good for you.
crazy that I understand the singling out because that just doesn't seem constructive. That seems like it's
No.
a harmful. They're trying to
Totally.
tear you down, and everybody knows that you're having a talk, where it's like everybody get out of the
In
room.
front of everyone.
That
Right.
doesn't
Like,
seem
what?
that doesn't seem
So weird.
that-
But on the other end, like David was probably my most influential professor. I had him for a lot of different classes, and I'm certified in a lot of weapons because I took class with him outside of ECF, and I like was the fight captain with him and the fight assistant for a lot of the shows. And he, like you said, was one of those teachers that really cared about me as a person. He cared about my career. He cared about how I was doing. And because I was doing all this fight stuff, which isn't stereotypically a very female-led field, we had a lot of grad students in shows that I would end up having to direct in the choreo. And they had these big male egos about being directed by a woman. And anytime they would try to talk back to me or explain that like that was incorrect, David would be like, "Oh, so interesting. Did I appoint you as the fight assistant?" And they'd be like, "Well, he's like, yeah, no, I didn't think so. So do you want to get hit in the face or do you want to listen to Faith?" It was just like having that person there that was like, I believe in this person that I'm putting in charge of you, so like fall in line.
Yeah.
Was a nice change from some of the other professors. And because for most of my college career, I was dating someone who was within the conservatory too and was very popular with the professors and everyone, and everybody thought that he was going to be a star. I, a lot of times by professors, was kind of told like, you don't really have to make it because he'll make it and you'll be there.
Whoa.
So you can kind of ride on that. And David was never like that. He was very, you are your own person with your own career and your own facet of things that is going to succeed on its own, which was nice to have when a lot of the female professors were very like, you should just kind of follow this man, which was very interesting.
That's so weird. College,
Yeah.
theater conservatories are just strange.
Yeah, it was really weird.
That's so weird. We're almost at 3 hours, so I think we should ask our couple of last questions, George. Just so
Yeah, I
we
was
can
about to
wrap
say,
it
I do
up.
have to teach
I
at
know.
3, so I
So
have to leave.
I was gonna say you've given us more than enough time. Thank you for spending.
Thank you so much,
Anytime.
Your
Faith.
Memorial
Thank
Day
you for helping us
with
with, even when you don't know it. Thank you for helping us with the creation and the workflow of this
Amen.
Oh my
podcast. For
gosh,
real.
of course.
100%.
This has been lovely. You guys are so fun to talk to.
You've been like a huge inspiration for this. So thank you for again.
Just a kickback, nothing crazy.
Yeah. We'll give you your
Just a
10%.
kickback.
We'll give you your 10%.
Okay, great.
And okay, so I like to ask this question at the end that I actually started last time because I have this idea of a steel tissue, meaning tissues can wipe away a tear and they can also wipe away blood. So what are some things that have made you the most vulnerable, speaking of vulnerability, in your life, and something that's made you the most resilient? Because in order to pursue what you're pursuing, you kind of have to meander between both of those things. So you don't have to get super deep,
Yeah.
and you don't have to answer if you don't want to either, but just touch on the idea of vulnerability and the idea of resiliency in your life, period.
Yeah. I mean, to this professor's point that went about it in a very wrong way, I wasn't being super vulnerable in my work. So that was true. Because I am a very, not so much anymore, but growing up, I was a very guarded person. I'm very typical first child. I carry everyone's emotions. I don't really want to present mine. I'm a fixer and I like to be the person that people come to. But kind of like what you were saying, I'm attracted to people who are very honest and very vulnerable. And then I realized that I wasn't being that person. So it's kind of the hypocrisy of I'm expecting other people to do that for me, but I'm not willing to do that in return. So I think kind of just going through life and realizing that when I am vulnerable with the correct people, which is a hard lesson, but when you're vulnerable with the correct people, it is a very like welcomed state and emotion that does help you in your work and in your life of just feeling seen, instead of, I'm very good at presenting different characters for different groups of people, and that doesn't really serve you in the long run. So I think just leaning into that has been my vulnerable piece. I think the harder things that have made me resilient are more of, especially when you're younger, this is a very female dominated field acting wise, and there's a lot of female competition. So I got told no a lot, like really, really early on, in comparison to some of my male counterparts who were never told no. And then once they graduated college, they were told no and they freaked out. So I think that has kind of been a benefit. Like once I graduated and got a bunch of no's, I was like, well, typical. Then being like, I've been told no since I was 8. So it wasn't a new thing, which I think was really helpful. Yeah, and I think just being able to kind of like what George was saying, the this too shall pass mentality of, there are going to be moments that suck and moments that are great, but you're never going to stay in that place for too long. It's been helpful. I don't know if that answered that question at all.
That was that was beautiful. That was beautiful.
Thanks.
Thank you. Seriously, that was awesome.
We have been enlightened.
George Michael, take us home.
So this is our closing question. One I kind of stole from another entity, but basically it can be profound. It's basically fill in the blank. It can be profound, or it can be just how you're feeling in the moment. So the fill in the blank is, my name is blank and I blank. So you can say, I feel hungry, I feel tired, I feel, or something profound, something that comes from this episode or just where you are in life. So take it away.
I guess like from what we talked about today, I'm Faith and I'm an actor, like full stop.
There you
Which
go.
is, even saying that, I'm like, oh, but yeah.
That's okay. Own it. I think that's been a revolving thing for this one. It's just owning your truth.
Good for you. Faith, where can people find you? What things, this is your moment. Go ahead and take your camera
And we'll
look at
we'll
that
put it in the
camera.
description too.
Yeah, we'll put everything in
Great.
the description. But where can people find you? Your socials? What are the things that you want to talk about? Whatever. This is your moment.
Love it. You can find me on Instagram. It's at mfaithknapp. Knapp is spelled with a K and 2 P's. You can follow my podcast. It's at Not Like the Movies Pod on Instagram, Apple Music, Spotify, all the things. You can listen to Isaac's episode. You can listen to Sky's episode. You can listen to all of the things. Yeah, you can. If you want to stalk my IMDb, there's not much there, but you could look at that too.
Hey, you have an IMDb.
That's
Period.
not it. Period. Full stop.
Well, people don't have IMDb's. Not everybody has one, so feel proud about even having one.
I don't.
Straight up. Faith Knapp, thank you for gracing us at this time. Thank you for being just a great person to just speak to, inspiration. Thank you for being vulnerable. Thank you for being honest. God bless you. I hope that you continue to just keep doing what you're doing and realize that you are on a really, really progressive path. You're on a really good path. Just maintain faith, so to speak, in who you are. Maintain faith. I think that's actually a good little motto. Just maintain faith, which means just keep on making that 8-year-old self proud, because you're doing it. Keep doing it.
Hey, thank you so much. It's finally nice to meet you.
You too.
You're in a lot of our conversations when it comes to how to troubleshoot this stuff, so I want to thank you personally.
Yeah, it's true.
Honestly, yeah. And it's cool to put a face now to the name that has helped us get to the promised land each episode. So,
oh my God, I'm so glad. Yeah. Keep
just
doing
know that.
it. Keep
just
doing
know that, like,
thing.
you're doing something right. If like other people are reaching out for your advice and help on what you're doing on your own time as well. So, iron sharpens iron.
Isaac, still figuring it out, but if you need anything, I'll try my best.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
You've been
Faith.
awesome. Same here. Ditto.
You have.
You need us for whatever, you let us know.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody. Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
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 This is the Café con Podcast.